This is where the early planning is taking place for our so-called Disney World project.
When we're making memories, happy days can reappear.
Whoa! Wow, people sure drive fast around here.
Let there be music from regions beyond.
WDW Radio, your information station.
Hello, my friend, and welcome to the WDW Radio Show, your guide to the Disney parks, experiences, movies, and more. I am your host, Lou Mangello, and this is show number 797. And together, as we have been since 2004, I want to not only help you have the best possible vacation experience when you go to the parks, but I also want to bring you a little bit of that Disney magic wherever you are. Here on the podcast, my weekly live video every Wednesday night, blog, events, weekly newsletter, and more. Please join the community and find everything at WDWRadio.com. We're going to revisit and recap D23 2024, the Ultimate Disney Fan Event this week, from the show floor to the panels, presentations, merchandise, and more, because after months of anticipation and speculation, we're going to recap, react, unpack, and discuss all of the announcements from the studios, Marvel and Star Wars, to a deep, deep dive into all of the new attractions, shows, and experiences coming to the Disney parks and cruise line around the world. We're also going to share our thoughts about balancing the past with the promise of the future and the oh-so-very passionate response from Disney fans as well. And of course, I want to hear from you and what you think was the most surprising or exciting reveal from D23. You can share your thoughts over in the clubhouse at wdwradio.com/clubhouse or call the voicemail at 407-900-9391 and I will share your story on the show. Also, stay tuned for a Disney Trivia Question of the Week, where you can enter for a chance to win a Disney Prize package, and more updates at the end of the show. And don't forget that the best way to stay connected and not miss a thing is to sign up for my free weekly email newsletter delivered right to your inbox with news, updates, special events, exclusive content, and contests, and more. And when you sign up, you'll also get a free copy of my 102 Things to Do at least once in Walt Disney World book. You can connect with me on social. I am at Lou Mangello on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn. And please visit LouMangello.com if you're looking for a speaker for your conference, event, or for your school to talk about lessons learned from the Disney parks on customer experience or leadership. Or if you are a creator, entrepreneur, or solopreneur who's looking to take your business, brand, or idea to the next level, you can find out some of the ways I can help you, we can work together, and about my Momentum series of events, including my weekend workshop this fall in Walt Disney World, September 27th through the 29th. In 3 days, in one room with 50 like-minded creators, solopreneurs, and entrepreneurs, you'll not just gain insights from expert speakers, but you'll dive into hands-on workshops and build powerful connections. You're going to learn from me and expert speakers who have walked the walk and who are there to help and work with you, practical and tactical strategies in interactive workshops, lots of networking and brainstorming sessions. You also get a massive 190-plus page workbook, and you'll leave not just with real changes to your business and your life, but ongoing support with lifetime access to our private Facebook group. Plus, I have a special limited time discount, and by the way, there's only 7 seats left. You can save $200 off your ticket by using promo code LOU, L-O-U, 200 by going to LouMangello.com/momentum. And if you're not sure if Momentum is right for you or someone you know, please feel free to reach out and email me. I'll be happy to help you any way I can. And if this part of the audio sounds a little bit off, I am once again in a hotel room in Washington, D.C. speaking at a conference, so I apologize, but the rest of the show was recorded at home in the studio, so I appreciate your patience and understanding. So let's get into this week's recap of D23, and if you like what you hear, and I hope that you do, please share the show and tell a friend. So sit back, relax, and enjoy this week's episode of the WDW Radio Show. For 2 years, we watched, we waited, we wondered, what was D23 going to have in store for us when Disney fans from around the world descended upon the Anaheim Convention Center and Honda Center, but more on that later, from August 9th through the 11th, 2024, for D23, the ultimate Disney fan event. And after months of speculation, anticipation, hoping, and dreaming, it was time. And this week, after desperately trying to digest and reflect on everything we heard, saw, and learned both on the show floor, in our seats, and in some cases online in the days that followed, we're going to look back at this year's event to recap, unpack, and discuss what can only be described as an unforgettable few days. And I certainly cannot try and tackle this task on my own. So joining me this week are some friends who I was very fortunate to share the experience with at D23. Of course, ladies first, Becky Menken from Mouse Fan Travel, not just at the event, but once again, since the very first Expo, Becky, WDW Radio and Mouse Fan Travel, we joined forces. We're like the Oreo cookie of D23. We come together and have our booth on the show floor. Thank you for being here.
Oh, absolutely. I don't know about you, but I don't know what day it is, what time it is. My brain is still spinning. I have no idea what I'm going to say. It's all a jumble, but I'm really happy to be here.
I think we're not alone. I think speaking of people whose brains are jumbled, I mean this affectionately because you just said it yourself.
I did.
I want to welcome Serena from Living by Disney to the show.
The way I knew you were going to introduce me with that. Yes. A little bit of scrambled egg brain, but very happy to be here and super excited to dive into all this.
Yeah, we were texting like throughout, we sort of passed each other, as many of us did, sort of like two ships in a night as we were going from one place to another, or waved from a few seats away in panels. But as we were sort of texting, especially as we got to that last day, our texts became like our brains, very sort of free-flowing and just very tired.
Yes.
Like a lot of tired, mushy texts in between us. And last, certainly not least, but someone who has been with me in the booth, behind the camera, and more importantly, a friend for so many years, Mr. Corey Bassett.
Hello, everyone. Still
recovering. It is good to see you, or well, because your camera's not working, not see you. Thank you guys all for being here, and I think I think we're recording this hopefully at the right time, because I know when we first left the Honda Center on Saturday night and got back to our hotel, I got there first. Becky got there after me. We were meeting up with Corey and Cassie and some other. We just sort of sat there, like in stunned silence, like trying to sort of gather our thoughts and put them into some semblance of coherent expression from the overwhelm of what we had gotten on Saturday night. And I have a feeling that we were not alone, and we needed a few days to try and process and compile everything that happened over those 3 days.
It was so amazing. You and I just sat down and I couldn't come up with, good luck with trying to put all this together. Seriously. But I don't think we've ever sat that long and not spoken a word, except for like looking at each other like, no, yeah, wait. I think we need a therapy session. I
think that's what this is going to be. This is sort of, and for you listening at home on the treadmill in the car, welcome to our therapy group, because I think that's a good way to put it. I think we need to sort of have these conversations with one another to not just sort of go through and sort of make sure we didn't forget anything, because there was so much, but break it down and see what we loved, see what surprised us, see maybe things that we didn't love as much, and sort of get a 30,000-foot view of where we are now, and certainly where the next few years ahead are going to take us.
Definitely. I think too, there's so much emotion to it all, because we're also fans. So we have all the fan excitement and emotion wrapped up into it too. So it like takes a while to unpack all that.
And that's it. Like that's the key word is emotion. If you don't believe Disney fans are emotional, I invite you to check out Twitter. It's x.com. look, we use words when we talk about Disney and the theme park experience and attractions. And look, we use the word love in ways that I just don't think we do with other brands, with other corporations, with other experiences. And I think that's why D23 matters so much to us. It's why we go through the time and expense of going there and have annual passes. And I think sometimes it sort of explains why we have such, whether it's knee-jerk or even longer term, very passionate, very emotional responses, because this place, these people, these characters, they mean a lot to us, and they matter to us. And that's why, while we might laugh about some of the online responses, I very much can, at least in 93% of the cases, I can understand where it comes from.
Yeah, because it's so tied to our childhood and our families. And I think most of us went there as kids, and our parents introduced us to these wonderful locations and these attractions and these shows. And when they go away or when they change, it's a gut punch in a way, because it takes away from that nostalgia that we connect to so deeply.
Yeah, we'll talk about,
I'm sure.
I listen, I've said this for years, and this is the perfect, testament to that. If you want to make Disney fans lose their minds, tell them you're changing something. God forbid taking something away. And, let me preface this by saying, I'm an emotional guy. I'm a sentimental guy. I love this place dearly. I have 50 plus years of memories, built into this. So I very much understand. So, I was trying to think, where do we even begin? Where do we even start talking about this? And maybe let's sort of step back and look at the event as a whole. Mm-hmm. And each of you sort of go around. Serena, Becky, and Corey, what were your expectations, right? What were your past experiences like, either at prior expos or if this was your first one? And maybe what were you hoping for or looking for most? So just sort of give me a very 30,000 foot view of D23 as a whole.
This was my third expo. My first was 2019. I knew that this was going to be different because of the change to the Honda Center. Just really did not know what that was going to look like or feel like. And I think that it definitely changed the scope of this event. To me, this one felt much bigger and grander and just more. And I don't think that's entirely because of all of the news we got. I think it's just also the venue changes and the way that they set it up, and the sort of largesse of those evening showcases were just really full productions, and having a seated theater like that and a stadium like that, it definitely changed it. So it felt bigger to me. It felt more overwhelming to me, but it also felt like I got more of my money's worth, in my opinion, for what you sort of sign up for. I feel like you got a lot out of this weekend.
What was the thing you were looking forward to most? Was there a single sort of announcement, a hope that you had that you were hanging your heart on? You got Freaky Friday too. I heard you screaming behind you. But other than that,
to me, I think it has to be the Disney World. That's mostly always what I'm going to be focused on, and seeing them invest most in Disney World. And of all the announcement, it has to be the Villains Land was the one that I was really hoping that they would revisit. I really thought they would. I wasn't really in that much doubt that they would, just because they had to have known by the reaction when they teased it out 2 years ago that it was going to be a fan favorite.
Becky, what about you?
Well, having been there since the very beginning, since the very first one, so we've been at every single D23, watching it morph and change and become something grand, which is a great word, Serena. Seeing it become what it's become. And honestly, when they announced those changes to the Honda Center, I was kind of like, ooh, what's going to happen here? How it's going to be that we get us all there, and just all the complications. But in all honesty, it became better and a better experience on the floor for me, because I didn't see 3 or 4 packs of huge queue lines everywhere where people had to sit in a queue line for 3 or 4 hours trying to get where they were going. Was it perfect? No, but the expectation, it exceeded my expectations. being able to see people actually enjoy so many of the different booths and experiences. I don't think they've been able to do that in the past to the level that they were this time, because you weren't waiting in 3-hour queue lines all day long.
Corey?
Yeah, I think I'm pretty close to the other two as well, in that with the change to the Honda Center, I knew the dynamic of how the mornings were going to go and what the crowd flow is going to be like. I was curious to see what that change did to the guests that wanted to experience those 3 panels that would normally not be doing anything until noon. And now having that many people on the show floor from the start was going to be a very different kind of expo. And I'm glad to see the change. And it was definitely interesting.
Yeah, I think we come at it from a unique perspective, especially Becky, having been there, not just for every expo, but going back to the very first one, but we sort of wear multiple hats. We go, for me, I go as a fan first, as an exhibitor second, and then sort of almost to, I'm sort of wearing the exhibitor hat and the coverage hat all at the same time. So while it makes sometimes for an interesting and challenging expo, I also sort of look at it different ways. And yes, we had sort of concerns beforehand. How are they going to get people to the Honda Center? What is this going to be like? What are we going to get? Is it going to meet expectations? Are we going to get that jaw drop moment that I admittedly said we need in our prediction? So I said, we don't just want something. I think we as fans need that, right? It goes back to that expression of love. I think some people needed to maybe fall back in love again because they didn't feel like they got some of those moments in the 2022 Expo. I think we got those in spades. We'll obviously talk more about that when we get it. And as we sort of recap, but I think you're right. This didn't just meet, but exceeded expectations, both from a show floor perspective, a crowd control perspective, lines, waiting, and just overall, even just as a guest, my overall experience was markedly better than I think it had been. So, and I think this goes to what we are going to talk about in the announcements. Disney clearly listens, they clearly learn, and they make adjustments best they can. Before we get to the Honda Center, let's talk about the show floor experience as well. I don't know why. It seemed bigger this year. Mm-hmm. It seemed bigger. It seemed like there was not just a lot more, but a lot more to do on the show floor. Now it went all the way from Hall A all the way down through Hall E. And while in past years, a lot of that space was empty, it was used as a queue for the premiere theater. It was used as a queue for some of the experiences. That went away, but we use the word experience a lot. And I think that for me was the biggest change that I saw this year, was that these were not just places to go and shop or places to go and look through. These were very experiential based. They were very sort of interactive, almost attractions that you can go through. Mm-hmm. FX, I'm looking at you. Oh, yeah. Avatar, ILM, the Marvel walkthrough at the TVA was like an attraction. I mean, it was almost very similar, Becky, to something that we saw in Hong Kong years ago, because there were live actors, there was technology. Mm-hmm. Give me a sense, again, each of you, you can go in the same order, Serena, Becky, and Corey. Talk to me about the show floor, what you liked, what you didn't like, and maybe what some of your favorite individual experiences were while you were there.
I agree. It was a lot more interactive, and they were kind of coming from a place of like, let's give them something to take home or share from this experience, whether it was a little photo or a video clip or just something that you could, film and sort of share. I mean, we're in a social media driven world at this point, so they get that. Like even the TVA experience that they had in the Marvel booth, you had that sort of opportunity to talk with Rocket, and I saw a lot of videos of people sharing that. So even the Disney Channel one, there was a little wand where you could do the like, you're watching Disney Channel, and like there's just a lot of fun things that they had that didn't necessarily like involve a lot, but like really kind of gave you a little something to bring home with you, which I thought was really cool. It also felt a lot less crowded on the show floor. Like the show floor itself was much bigger. There was more of it, but because maybe it was spread out to more space, I remember the last time feeling like they're like feeling almost claustrophobic trying to move around. And so I appreciated that they're giving you more space to sort of expand, and it didn't feel quite so like constrictive and in kind of just maneuvering around. I love the changes they made. I really felt like the organization was top notch. Like everything was marked. I knew where everything was. The maps were good. Like the logistics and crowd flow, like they nailed it from that perspective.
Even just adding the overhead banners that listed booths and gave you arrows to make sort of your wayfinding much easier without having to look down at a map or look at your app.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. The interactiveness of the focus of every single booth pretty much had something they were either giving you, handing you, or something for you to do in an individual basis rather than a big group watching something, which I loved. FX is a great example of that, where the bear, you saw people looking like they're cooking in a kitchen, and it's like, I need to go do that because I want to see what this is. So there were these visuals that were drawing you in, if you did or did not want this chef special, or if you wanted or needed a bottle opener or not, you were drawn to it, to be part of it, to be interactive with it, which I absolutely adored. All of the photo opportunities that they had, both Disney and other booths as well. I thought that it was really smart. And yes, the TVA, to be able to have a walkthrough attraction like that you had to do again. I did it once, and then I said, I got to go back and do this again because maybe I missed some pieces because I was so busy being afraid of what's going to be around the other corner. Hong Kong, where we did the walkthrough there and had no idea what was going to go on. All the way to with FX when they did the scarier one. No, it's not in my head.
American Horror Story.
American Horror Story. Thank you. At the very end where you had to get your giveaway, and they're like, it only pops out or grabs you every other one or something. I'm like, I'm scared to death to grab my stupid keychain. But every piece engaged you in their IP, and I loved every second of it. And with you, because it was so spread out, I think that there were a lot of people eater type of booths in the area. It felt a lot less crowded, even though I have a feeling that it was probably the highest attended of the expos that we've seen. And I'm going to still call it expo. I apologize to all the people listening, but it's not going to get out of my head, and I'm going to call it that going forward. Oh, and then the other one too that I loved was upstairs for the Inside Out, the mood swings and seeing which mood you are, which I thought that was brilliant. It had something.
But it was broken. It was broken a lot because when I went, it gave me anxiety, and I'm not, and I just feel like
clearly broken.
What you're going to say was broken. Okay,
well, my therapist seems to agree. So.
But I mean, I thought that was really cool to have these little stations for everybody. It was great for kids. It was great for adults. It was great for fans. I thought that it was so well done.
Corey?
Yeah, I agree with Becky there on the less crowded sense and also the repeatability and the Marvel thing. So you'd go through the experience with the TVA and you'd see Miss Minutes, and then you get to the end and you'd get your role, which was a joke that had been made by Miss Minutes in the beginning, and it actually pays off in the end. But then every time you go through the experience, you get a different reward at the end. So you have to go back through multiple times or go to eBay. And so I love that. They were totally bought in, that the live actors were, and the experience itself was amazing because you get to see all the costumes and the CGI and all the effects with Rocket and stuff. What I liked probably the most in terms of Expo to Expo is that in past it's a convention, but the activations where you'd be walking down the halls and you'd have someone singing, or you'd have musical groups playing jazz music in the middle, or you'd walk out in the main foyer area and there's Mickey with the drum corps band. Those were pretty awesome to see because people just stop, gravitate for a few minutes, and just watch something in that moment, and then they can continue on with their experience. And that was something new that I really enjoyed.
Yeah, I like that as well because there was always a sort of surprise around every corner. Like you said, those different sort of musical activations. And I agree with all of you. I think the flow and the pacing of the show floor was much better. They were very interactive. And the first night I was there and I was able to sort of get an empty room look through and walk past many of the pavilions, there really was something for every Disney fan, right? Because when you say Disney fan, it covers a very, very wide spectrum of interests, of characters, of ages, of demographics. And whether it was Abbott Elementary, The Descendants, Disney Plus, Hulu, American Horror Story, The Bear, and everything in between, I think in past years, a lot of the focus has always been, well, I need to go to the parks and resorts. Like that was sort of the booth to go to. And I do feel that there was a lot more. I mean, look at the Avatar booth. Look at the ILM booth, where they brought in that virtual set and backdrop as if you were standing on the set of The Mandalorian to see what it looks like behind the scenes. And I think there was a lot of that. The Imagineering booth is a perfect example. It very much was, we're going to peel back the curtain this year. We're going to show you the hollow tile floor. We're going to show you not just models, but there were 200 or so Imagineers constantly going through and giving presentations on that center stage, in addition to showing you close-up views of the progression of audio animatronics, the models of not just what is being built now, but as we saw on Sunday, what is coming. And I think those are sort of the gifts to fans who are fortunate enough to be able to go and be on the show floor and have those experiences. One of the ones that I loved, and I love the way they did it, and being the history nerd that I am, that I really enjoyed, was the Walt Disney Archives brought in 25 or so different vehicles from every sort of live action element that you could think of. So whether it was Muppets, whether it was Freaky Friday, whether it was, I didn't even know what some of the vehicles were.
Cruella's
I gravitated
car,
to
like
Cruella's,
the DeVille.
the multiple, the Lost Van, the Tron light cycle. And it was one of those things that you didn't have to wait in line for. You didn't have to sort of queue up for. And I think that made for an overall better experience. And as we start to talk about and get over to the Honda Center, I think that's what bringing the three big presentations, Legends, Parks and Resorts, and Studios, putting those somewhere else and at night, as opposed to Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, right like early in the day, you no longer spent 3, 4, 5 plus hours either waiting in a queue, being in the presentation, dumping out of it, and then all of a sudden you've got 15,000 people sort of descending on the show floor. It really, it worked way better than I expected. And I think it made for a much more pleasant overall experience just throughout the day being on the show floor. Even the merchant, I like the way they did the merchandise and having virtual queues, every part of it. They really have learned from the past number of years of doing the expo. And so I like huge applauding them for that, because I cannot imagine the logistics that goes into trying to plan something of this magnitude.
Yeah. I loved the Honda Center, and I just so did not know what to expect, but I agree. The guest experience was so much better. And I love that it felt like you were rewarded for being there, for being present. A lot of the things were made to enjoy by being there. You really got a lot of value out of taking the time to come. And that's what you want. Cause we're the best fan. The people that attend this are your top fans. They love everything that you're doing. So really kind of saying, if you're going to take the time to travel here and buy these tickets, you are going to be rewarded by things that you will not be able to experience or see or hear unless you are present. And I love that. I love that they didn't stream everything and you had to be there. It felt a lot more special.
Well, and I think there's something to that point. I mean, there's something, and I get it, it's a double-edged sword, right? Because you want as many people to experience it as it happens as possible. But there is something about being in the room. There's the energy of having, sitting shoulder to shoulder with other fans and looking around the room as announcements are made, or, let's quickly talk about the presentations that took place at the Anaheim Convention Center. I love the schedule this year. As I was going through it, again, fan first, there were so many things I wanted to see. And I think it was spread out enough that I felt like I wasn't going to have a lot of FOMO, because had I not had the booth, I would have been able to see the things that I wanted to. But again, because of the reservation system ahead of time. You knew that there was a seat. We didn't get to do a lot. We were able to go to the Marvel Comics presentation, really because I wanted to not just see Cebulski, but I also wanted the comic book that I knew that they were going to hand out at the end. But Serena, did you get to go to a lot of presentations on the show floor itself, or in the convention center itself?
Yeah, I went to a few. Like I prioritized a few. You're never going to do it all, for sure. There was some really fun ones that I really liked. There was a couple that were really good that I didn't know what to expect. The Imagineering one that they had on Friday was fine. I feel like I'm just so plugged into that stuff that it wasn't anything I hadn't heard before. Some of the one that really surprised me how much I liked it was the fashion show, the like cosplay, what was it called? Masquerade?
The Masquerade.
Yes. I'd never done that one before. And it's so fun. And Nina West was the host, and it was like a lot of fun. They had celebrity judges, but seeing all the cosplays, the people that made these costumes that were so elaborate, and they got to show it to everybody. That was really fun. Like that was one that I had like zero expectation for, that I was like, oh my gosh, that was so much fun. Yeah, there was a lot of really, really nice panels. I feel like Disney fans are so diverse, and there's so many different pockets of interest. I feel like there was something for everyone, which I really liked.
Yeah, I love that too. And I think the way that they were spread out through the multiple stages, and even sort of the timing of the panels and presentations. And I think they were very cognizant too that not everybody was able to get a seat at the Honda Center at night.
Right.
And I think that this was the only sort of FOMO that you might have had. I think as a gift for those fans that couldn't get to go there, you do things like you schedule the tribute to the Sherman Brothers late in the afternoon. So if you couldn't get to the Honda Center, you get the gift of having that presentation there, so you don't feel left out at all. And from what I understand, like a lot of these presentations, there was a lot of emotion. Like the gift that they should be giving you is when you walk in the door, just give everybody D23 branded tissues, because you know there's going to be a lot.
I know.
Becky, that's the giveaway.
That's
at the
what we
booth
do next year. Yeah, exactly. Now, the other gift that you get too is that if you're not going to the Honda Center, all of the queues are short for the really, really popular pavilions. So Corey and I and Cassie found that out when we weren't able to go to the first one. We ended up just doing all the things we wanted to do because there were only like 5 people in line. So that was kind of a plus.
Yeah, that would have been nice.
Yeah, it's definitely a strategy. If you're willing to kind of forego the Honda Center for whatever reason, there is a big advantage to taking all those other booths in. So we walked into Avatar, Imagineering. We were able to pick up like the little rewards for different membership things, all within maybe a half hour, which would have taken several hours if during the regular part of the day. So there is a strategy there, and there's a perk to maybe not going to the Honda Center, and having gone on Saturday, you definitely want to be there.
Pick and choose wisely.
Sunday we weren't able to go to the Legends because we had to break down our booth, so we had to stay and be in the area. But it did afford us the opportunity without huge crowds, and not that I felt that the crowds were really overwhelming for the most part throughout the weekend, but go through and see so many. Again, it's the same thing of such a wide spectrum on the show floor, whether you were interested in merchandise, whether it was ESPN or Rock'em socks or fine jewelry. And like we made some fun videos, which are coming out soon or maybe out already by the time you listen to this, finding some of those not so hidden gems, or in the case of one thing we're going to cover, multiple gems that were out on the show floor, which were really unexpected. And I think were wonderful experiences on their own. But let us metaphorically and actually move our way over to the Honda Center and start with that, right? I will admit, and as I did, I was very, very concerned. Like, how are they going to move 12,000 plus people down Catella to the Honda? Like, there's just no way. Like, there's just between the traffic and the buses and the Uber. Listen, when I am wrong, which is often, so I'm used to this. I am wrong. Like, kudos to whatever logistics team arranged the multiple bus location pickup spots. The drop, every part of that experience was amazing. We left the first night. I left on Friday. I left around 5:30, got a bus over by Hall A. I waited online maybe 10, 15 minutes, got there early, got into the Honda Center early, had time for dinner to find my seat. Getting out, same thing, was no sweat. So like really, really, again, it cleared the schedule for the day. They did not have, at least from what my experience and the people that because I asked everybody what theirs was like too, even folks that were in wheelchairs and had other special, they had no issues getting, there were special buses for those folks that needed either a scooter, a wheelchair, etc. Just very quickly, if you have any comments, your thoughts just about the Honda Center experience, getting there being, half the fun itself.
I loved having it there. I was like you. I wasn't sure how the logistics were going to work, but it was so good. And it allowed them, and I know that they said this beforehand, that they were going to be able to give a more production value to the presentations. And I always thought the presentations were good I wasn't ever going, oh, that was just sad or anything, but boy, they were not kidding. This was an actual production. Like there was a full lighting package, and the backgrounds that they did on all of the stages were gorgeous and stunning and moving and like colorful. And they gave everybody like a wrist light for all 3 days that you would turn on. And then it reminded me of the Glow with the Show. Do you remember those ears that they had for a little while? But it would light up for everyone in reaction to the lighting and everything that was going on in the show. So you kind of were a part of it, but not only were you a part of it, everyone else, you could kind of look into the sea of people going up into this arena, and everybody's like waving their lights around. It was so fun. I was really surprised how much fun it was. All of the music acts that they had, live performers that were sprinkled all through the showcase, all three of them. I was super impressed. So I bought tickets for my team. So, because you never know with Disney, even like you never assume that you'll be able to get a media ticket. So I bought, so that it was $440 or $420, I forget which, a person, and that was the 3 days of the convention. So all 3 days of the Anaheim Convention Center, and that was a seat at the Honda Center for all 3 nights. That was not great. It was a little bit in the higher up section. It was like the higher section. Of course, it's not that big, so you could still see fine, but it wasn't like a super low seat. But it was pricey. And I remember when I got them, I thought, that's a lot of money. Like, wow. But now I would pay that again in a heartbeat for what I felt like I got in terms of like 3 full days and 3 evenings worth of full performances and everything that went into it. I was like, wow, that was actually not that bad for what I got.
So I'm happy you said that, because I talked to a few other people that, friends that had come by the booth who had purchased tickets. And I said, what did you feel did you sort of feel like you got your value? And they all had sort of the same reaction and then some, because when you went to the Honda Center, and then, because I used to think the arena was like, wow, this is amazing. Look at this huge arena. Now you go from the Honda Center, you go in to see some of the productions, and you're like, oh, the arena is so cute.
I know.
Look, because it was, look, it's all about the shared experience, because it was part Taylor Swift concert, part Super Bowl, part, convention, all sort of wrapped into one. And this is not meant to sort of name drop, but when I talked to Michael Vargo a few weeks ago, leading up to this, he said, just get ready, because we're going to leverage this space and make it experiential. We are going to be able to increase the production value exponentially. Mm-hmm. And he delivered. And again, kudos to them. And I'm thinking specifically like Friday night, some of the effects, not just us on the wrist, but the use of lasers, the use of confetti, the use of bubbles, like all the different things that they did, which again is it's that joy of being in that room and sharing it with, maybe the strangers that are sitting next to you.
Yeah.
Becky, what did you think about sort of being in the...
Yeah.
Saturday?
I'm with you on the whole logistics thing of getting there. Obviously, I plan events. So I was looking at the worst possible case scenario of moving 12,000 to 13,000 people from one place to another, essentially around the same time. But like you said, having multiple bus stops and moving people at different moments. I mean, it was so brilliant the way they did it. The only caveat was obviously this is something you can't really avoid, but everybody leaving the Honda Center at the same time. The departure.
Speak for yourself, sister. I saw the finale come, and I'm like, peace out.
Me too.
I was like,
me too.
I looked around. I'm like, any giveaways? Nope. I was like on the first or second bus.
Although
exactly.
I almost missed the villains announcement. I was this I have bag on shoulder.
You got to learn the cues.
Ready.
There's definitely the cues. Like when my family and then music starts in, like I'm out. So I kind of figured that part out. But for me, because I come from a stage production background and I loved seeing the lighting. I loved seeing the production. I loved seeing the pyro. I loved having that much space and that production space and that backstage space, because clearly when you put something like this on, you have to have a lot of space to house people as they come on too. So I was just imagining what that would be backstage, and clearly the arena does not have that type of space to pull off what they did. So it elevated the entire experience. Mm-hmm. It elevated the amount of entertainment that we got, the value that we got from it. So yeah, while the ticket price was hefty for essentially what is 3 shows, I loved having a seat, so that when they're not opening the gates and we're all running in like buffalo trying to find, the best seat of what we believe is the best seat, when you have it pre-assigned where you could select it like a concert, that took a lot of stress out of the everyday scenario where you're lining up and then you have to run in like the running of the bulls, and it's not fun. So this made it so much more pleasant,
relaxed. It was such more of a
that's a great way to put it.
Yeah, was so much more relaxed. Like, you and I, Becky, we've had moments over the years, but we were like, wow, like this is so seamless. Like it's so.
There's a
easy.
reason
like,
you were hitting anxiety in your booth.
Exactly. But I also like the fact that you could go in 2 hours early. There was food there. There was drinks there. You could have dinner at the Honda Center so that you wouldn't worry about having to go eat something first and then trying to get there. I just think the whole thing was probably as close to perfection as they've done up to this point.
Yeah.
Clearly we could pick on little, pieces about what they could improve later. But from an overarching experience, it was great.
And I love that if it was important to you to be in the room for those things, you bought a ticket and you had a seat. Previous years, people would stay even overnight on the concrete floor with no guarantee. Like you might do that
get in
and still not get in the room. And that is such a disappointment. So I love that you knew that you had that seat, and it just made the whole experience so much nicer.
Yeah.
So I want to make sure I'm sorry, Corey, go ahead.
No, so my family's been the people lining up at 4 a.m. before in the basement. So they definitely understand that, but it was definitely an experience.
But I think that sometimes that's part of the fun, right? It's and
fun?
we've done it before.
I think it is when you look back on it.
It is.
Exactly. Not in the moment,
not
but
in
after
it,
the moment.
I've done it at D23. I've gone to I go to cons and stuff with my son and sometimes with friends, and I think yes, like you sort of hate it as it's happening because you're getting up early, or you're getting up early here to get into a virtual queue. But that's part of the fun. Like it's the getting up early, it's the standing online, it's meeting and talking with people. It is part of, I think, the overall experience and weekend. And whether it's not unique to D23, it's Comic-Con, it's a sporting event, it's it's a show, whatever it might be. So there's certainly downsides to it, but I think that's sometimes part of it's like going to a Giants game in December in New Jersey. Like, why are you going to sit out in the snow and you're like, yeah, because that's it. That's part of the fun. You're like, no, I'll sit on the couch. I'm fine. I really want to spend, and I think we're going to spend a lot of our time talking about parks and resorts or Disney experiences on Saturday. But I do want to touch on the Friday night Disney Studios presentation and hear from you in terms of what you think, either specific announcements or as an overall, because I think there was a lot that was new, but nothing new, right? Like, and I think you can thank or blame Inside Out 2, like, because, look, sometimes say, well, everything's a sequel. Well, but clearly, fans, we like what we like, and we go back to some of the things that we like. And we were joking around earlier, about, there's Toy Story 5 and how many, Frozens are they going to make? And we were trying to wonder, like, what movie franchise like has the most sequels? Like, is it Sharknado? Is it Fast and Furious? Like, and we laugh, right? We laugh at Fast and Furious, but Fast and Furious has an attraction at Universal Studios. Like, I think not just a very quick aside. I think Fast and Furious at Universal is like the Corey Feldman of theme park attractions. Like, we're not sure if the joke is on us or it actually takes itself serious and is just sort of unaware. Yeah.
Two words for you. 2 words: superstar limo. I just want to put that on record.
So
just saying.
All right. So let me, and I'll, forgive me if it's easy to miss something because there was so much. So from Pixar, we had Toy Story 5 for 2026. It's the sequel, quote unquote, nobody asked for, but then when you see how they're sort of framing it, right? Because now the characters are facing the real, threat that we as parents and kids face, and the toys are facing, which is technology, is sort of the threat to sort of playing with toys. Incredibles 3 is coming back with Brad Bird. I'm always down for more Incredibles.
Always.
Frozen 3 for 2027, Moana 2, live action Lilo and Stitch, Tron Ares. I'm a huge Tron fan. I know Corey is a massive Tron fan.
That looked good, though, didn't it?
Yep. It looked amazing.
Like, really good in the cast.
Jared Leto. Like, is this going to be?
I like him.
Jared Leto.
I like him.
He's a good come on.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Morbius. Have we met?
Evan Peters. Evan Peters.
I love Evan Peters.
Such an interesting cast choice for that. I was very excited about Tron.
Yeah. Interesting cast choices. They showed Snow White.
They showed it. They showed it there. It was there.
But there was, it's interesting. When I saw the words come up on the screen, I was like looking around.
I know.
All of a sudden I'm like, but people responded, very favorably. At least sort of the sound in the room, that people responding favorably, what the internet might have said afterwards.
Yeah.
How that movie is going to do, only time will tell. For me, the thing I was most looking for was what was coming from Marvel Studios. We saw more from Captain America: Brave New World, which comes out. It's the Valentine's Day movie of 2021.
It sure is.
Every
the people you love.
Whether they want to go or not, that's where you're going on Valentine's Day.
Yep.
The restaurants are going to be empty because everybody's going to be Captain America: Brave New World. Agatha All Along is just weeks away, and
Yay.
I love the fact that there was activations both on the show floor and that we saw a lot from it.
Their performance.
For every single one of these, they had actors for every single one of these, whether they were, screen actors or voice actors coming out for each of these announcements.
Mm-hmm. It was a long show. It was over 3 hours, the whole showcase. They went through a lot, but they had so many celebrities there. So many. I love that. The other one I thought looked really good was, is it Elio or Elio? I'm not sure how you pronounce it. I think it's Elio.
Isn't Elio pizza?
Elio?
Wasn't Elio?
I don't know.
Don't they make pizza rolls?
Is that why it sounds familiar? But that looks
right. There
good.
was one.
That was one of the
one that
few like original
that we hadn't heard of before.
Yeah.
I got my wish. I got my Daredevil. The cast was out there. We saw an amazing trailer for Daredevil.
I still
which
have
is,
to see that.
Oh, it's so good. We also got information about the new Mandalorian and Grogu movie directed by Jon Favreau, coming out in May 2026, sort of bringing those characters from Disney Plus over to the big screen. It just makes sense.
It really does.
Avatar Fire and Ash is coming out this Christmas. So there was a lot. What if anything for you, Corey or Becky or Serena, any sort of one that this is the one that I have my pin in that I can't wait to see? For me, spoiler alert, obviously it's Daredevil is very, very, very high.
Yeah, I think my easy answer is Tron, just because I've been a Tron fan since before I can remember, really. But that's the easy answer. I think what I'm most looking forward to is Agatha, just because of how edgy and how dark it's going to take Marvel is new and exciting. And she's an amazing actress. So I think that show is going to be something to keep an eye on for sure.
I'm with you. The dark and twisty side of me goes right to Agatha, and that's the one that I've been really looking forward to. But Mandalorian Grogu, obviously, I'm a big Baby Yoda fan, and okay, Grogu, I know, but I absolutely adore that. So I'm looking forward to it on the big screen in movie form. But the one thing, unfortunately, I wasn't there in this presentation, so there were a couple of things that you guys said that happened that are so intriguing to me. That I absolutely loved. Daredevil, I have to see that trailer to get me back into it. You're the one that talked me into watching it, Lou, and I got addicted and I loved it from the Netflix side of it. So I can't wait for that. But this spins over into that presentation of what's coming to Disney Broadway for The Greatest Showman.
Yes.
I love that movie.
So good. Yeah.
I heard that was just an amazing way that they announced it and presented it. So that was big. And the other thing that I would love for you to talk about a little bit more, because I still can't wrap my brain around it for nothing, is the David Blaine card trick.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
I've read other people that are just like brains exploded when this thing happened. And I'm a David Blaine fan, so I was really intrigued to know that it's going to be streaming. So I can't wait to say that. But could you tell us more about the card trick?
You know what? Brains, flames from the side. It was sorcery. There was literal sorcery. I think David Blaine is a remarkable illusionist and performer. And what he's able to do, doing close up magic on such a huge scale. The first time he's doing it in front of 12,000 people. Very sort of quick description. As we walked in, we were given a sealed black case. He comes out. He tells us to take it out. Inside is a special deck of cards. And he basically tells us to go through, randomly select a small stack, a big stack, turn them over, put them on the bottom, put them on the top. Very much sort of going through multiple steps to, without question, randomize for everyone in all 12,000 of us to randomize the cards that we were going through, right? There's absolutely no way we all could have picked the exact same card. At one point, after going through step after step after step, we're told to take one card, stick it under our leg, and then take the rest of the cards and put them away. He calls two people from the audience out. He flips through a deck of cards. He tells one person, "Did you see a card? Did you think of a card? Do you know what it is?" "Yes, fine." "Don't say it out loud." Tells the woman next to him to go through and to select this, relatively random looking card. He holds up the Queen of Spades and he says, "Is that your card?" And the guy's like, "No, it's not. I chose the Three of Hearts." He's like, "Well, that's what she's holding up. Because if you looked at the Queen, she was holding in, like, the card itself was, the Queen was holding a Three of Hearts. Take a guess what every single person had under their leg in that audience."
How? This is
sorcery.
And to me, and you guys looked at all the cards. It was the actual deck of cards.
Every card was different.
Everyone had the same card. Yeah, everyone had the same card. If I had not been present, I would not have believed that really just happened.
See, and I needed somebody else to back that story for Lou, because when he told me, I still didn't believe it. So now, Serena, you backed it, and now I'm good. But
and everybody around us was like, "Let me see your deck. Let me see your deck." And all, like, our decks were all different.
Yeah.
Like the rest of the cards in the deck were not only different, but the order was different.
Yeah, because he had us flip some this way, flip some this way, like randomly, like pick a few, flip it, put it under. Like, so it was so randomized. Obviously he knows what he's doing, but I I can't tell you how he did it, except that he is actually a sorceress, and that's the only thing that makes sense to me.
He's going to show up now on Agatha, so we got it.
See, like Jared Leto, he sold his soul to the devil, and that's how he's able to do it.
I mean, it makes sense to me.
But the thing that I loved, and Serena, we can speak to this briefly, is not only did they have the directors and the actors and the stars coming out, but I loved how, as different movies were being announced, I made a joke about Freaky Friday too. That may have, other than The Greatest Showman on Broadway, that may have been like one of the other big reactions from people, because again, this whole weekend and what we're going to talk about for Saturday is very much touching on the sense of nostalgia and emotions. It's all different, right? Whatever sort of your generation, whatever your movie is, whatever your theme park attraction is, they were able to sort of touch on that and bring something to life for you. So whether it's Freaky Friday or The Greatest Showman or, Marvel or characters and movies that you grew up with they're bringing sequels, I love sort of seeing that everybody found something that was their moment in that night.
Yeah, I love that too. Mm-hmm. And the live performances, I mean, the Moana performing, The Rock coming out, they were kind of opened the show. Zootopia 2 is another one I'm very excited about. Zootopia is I think one of the real gems that has come out of Disney animation in the last 10 years. And Frozen 3, I'm a big Frozen fan. I love the storylines, and I can't wait to see what they're going to do with that, because they have a full complete story of that done, and there's lore and there's backstory, and there's it's a very layered story that they're telling. So I'm really excited to see what they do with that. I mean, they've just, there is a lot. I get the criticism that there's not as much original, that they need more. And maybe there is more in the works, and we're just not. These are just sort of the things that they're coming off the top of their head saying, yes, these are in production right now. But
yeah, but if you have that IP and that story can continue, utilize it, right? I mean, I know that all of us are, as Disney fans, are going, yes, give us something original, but even the original stuff with Disney wasn't really original. It came from
fairy tales or Grimm
exactly. So
and they gave us Wish. They gave us what we asked for, and we might have been like, how about a sequel? So
Yep, exactly.
Well, like I said, I think that they very much read the room, in terms of what can be a sequel and what can't be a sequel. They just canceled Eternals 2, so they understand what people like, and I think that was a great call. Anything else from studios, Disney Plus, on screen, on Broadway, live shows coming to Disney Cruise Line, whatever it might be?
Nothing else I can think of. I just loved all the performances.
Yeah.
The show's coming to Disney Cruise Line, if you want to skip over to that for a second, because that was actually under the DCL announcements. But Hercules coming back.
Hercules.
That was so. I mean, the entire
different franchise.
Wow, the whole room erupted when that announcement came out, and then of course the puppet that's coming to the Moana show. Oh my gosh, Kai, that's going to be it. The visual itself looks stunning, and I can't wait to see how that's going to come out, because it just looks, the renderings look amazing.
And that's going to be so new, right? I mean, we don't have a Moana live show anywhere, so.
We'll get to that quickly, because there's not really a lot to talk about from the parks and resorts.
Yeah, no, there's not. It's going to go really fast.
I don't even know. Right? I just don't. I don't know how to sort of attack and approach this. We will talk and go through as many of the significant announcements, because there really were close to 50 individual little announcements that were peppered through from the parks and resorts around the world. Let's just sort of, like we did before, let's take a step back at the overall presentation itself, because I think there were a number of things that stood out to me before we get granular and talk about them individually. We talked about D23 as a whole learning from feedback, right? Learning from past events. I think that Disney Parks has learned from past events. They've been listening to the feedback leading up. They knew, and we talked about this on the prediction show, they knew that they needed to not just deliver, they needed to over-deliver.
Yeah.
They needed to not just talk about Blue Sky, but more importantly, we're going to copy and paste this attraction and put it elsewhere. It needed to be unique, non-repetitive experiences across all of the different parks, which I think they delivered on, having to focus on things that were unique, right? And this idea of prioritizing unique offerings that were tailored to each park. If you sort of look at it, there's not really much overlap. Like even the Spider-Man attractions are going to be different. And who doesn't love having more Spider-Man attractions and reasons to go visit the overseas parks? Becky Mankin, I'm looking at you. You know, but whether it's Coco, whether it's Avatar, they are distinctly different from existing attractions in other parks, which I think signals this, we get it. We're not just going to copy and paste. I think the overall way things were presented was very smart. Again, it was performative, right? I felt like I was almost watching, because we were watching such a well-produced show. And I think it was very important. And Disney knew this, and we understood this, that the communication strategy of how these announcements were going to be delivered in a very balanced manner, right? It was very fun. But there were also like serious moments too. Like we understand like the importance of this. And I think it kept us engaged the entire time. We'll talk about them. Like I didn't know who most of them were, but I love the musical acts because they almost sort of served not just as entertainment, but I needed a mental intermission.
Yes.
Like I needed time to like process what just happened, and I'm feverishly typing, like trying to get stuff shared on stories and create reels and screaming at the internet for not working. But I also like the fact too that when we talk about parks and resorts, and you know, it's now sort of the Disney Experiences Showcase, this very much heightened awareness that they are catering to not just domestic theme park fans, right? This is very much increasingly catering to a global audience, and not just creating attractions that are going to satisfy the quote-unquote locals for each of those places, but they are encouraging us to travel, to experience multiple Disney destinations for these unique experiences. I love the fact, I said in the predictions and wish list show that I wanted a jaw drop moment, right? We got a lot of those surprise announcements, and I think they knew this, right? I think it demonstrates their not just commitment to innovation, but yes, you do to a certain degree have to cater to what fans' interests and expectations are. You have to sort of over deliver, and I think this idea of not, you know, nothing we're talking about is Blue Sky. This accelerated path of ambitious growth and innovation. Yes, that's PR, that's marketing speak, but it's assuring you this is not just Blue Sky. These are actual developments. Like everything that we're talking about, as opposed to maybe some things in the past, are things that are going to happen across the global destinations. We're not talking 10, 15 years. Like this is all, and correct me if I'm wrong, all of the things that were announced are going to be open by 2029. Is that correct?
They said 5 years. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I think Bruce Vaughn, the head of Imagineering, broke out into a sweat when he said that to everybody. But he was up on stage with Josh tomorrow. But yeah, they said within 5 years that this was their 5-year plan that we were hearing. So they really acknowledged a lot of. I think this is a good brand strategy anyway these days, is acknowledge the criticisms and say how you are rising above it or how you are countering that. Acknowledge that we know Blue Sky is not what you guys want. Here's what we've got instead. And, you know, just by acknowledging that, it helps people to say, okay, thank you for saying maybe we didn't impress you a lot 2 years ago. So now we're actually going to over deliver with what we're going to give you.
Here's the kind of interesting thing that I think 2 years ago, we thought that's what we wanted. I think that we all kind of were interested in peeking behind the curtain a little bit about how the process is. And that's what we got. And then all of a sudden you see the other side of the not benefit of that, is that you're excited about something that may not come to fruition. So I think we all learned something about that experience.
Yeah, and I think probably the biggest takeaway I had from the overall experience for Saturday was just the self-awareness from knowing that they had something to deliver on, and then also all the Deadpool references. Like, they were willing to acknowledge the flaming dragon in the room, but they I appreciate that as a guest, because it just means that they're human too. Like, they get that sometimes things aren't going to go their way. And it's okay. It's okay to acknowledge that and poke a little fun, maybe at someone's sweater expense. But it's all in good fun, and it was an amazing experience.
Out of all the pictures that I have on my phone, I got every single one of those Deadpool panels because they were absolutely hilarious. And Fix the Yeti, I almost blew water out my nose because that was so hilarious. And the level, like you said, of self-awareness that they don't always get something right. And the ability for them to laugh at themselves too, and to reflect what we're saying outside of it, it does prove they're listening, and that they can take themselves a little less seriously as well.
And they understand their characters too. Like, they utilizing Deadpool was genius because that's on brand with him, but it also allows them to poke a little fun.
Yeah.
And I was very surprised and grateful as a fan, not just of the recognizing the self-awareness, but how much fun they allowed to me make, right? And please, this is not meant to sort of, but when I had the remarkable opportunity and privilege and responsibility to talk to Josh, I said, like, did they sneak that sweater joke in past you? Like, did you not know that was coming? But I think that's the expression of trust that they are giving. I think that's what 2022 was. Our expression of trust is, we're going to tell you some of the things we're thinking about. We want to see what your reaction is. This to me was an additional expression of trust, saying, we get it. We know the Yeti's broken. We know my sweater's Josh, your sweater's fine. But we know that, about like the fires, recognizing like just genuine accidents that happen and poking fun at it, I think put a lot of fans almost at ease. Like, oh, wait a minute. This is not just this corporate behemoth. Like, they get it. It's very humanizing, I think, to the brand to do it. If you would have told me at the first expo, or even 6 years ago, at one point, Deadpool's going to come out and do a musical number and make fun of all the things that Disney has had wrong over the years. Like, it sounds like something that just could never and would ever happen. But that's, you talk about fan service in the best possible way. And I think that's exactly what that did. And that impressed me, honestly, as a fan, as much as some of the announcements was, you get it. You get us, you see us, you hear us, and we have this mutual level of trust between us, I think.
Yeah, they read the room. They understood the assignment. They understood what people wanted from them. And that really, it went so far in their goodwill that people feel now towards them. They handled it. I literally have no notes. Like, to me, from a brand standpoint, that the way they communicated all that was perfect.
And from the moment the show opened, like having Patrick Warburton do that and have all those jokes.
Yes, immediately from the jump,
you're all in.
Yeah,
you're all in.
Absolutely.
And everybody identified with it. You understood what that message was. You saw it. You knew exactly what he was representing.
Yeah,
it was flawless.
It was.
Right, we all had that Captain America. I understood that reference.
Yes.
Throughout.
Yes, absolutely.
And you knew there was that self-awareness and transparency when he goes, through that list, and he goes something, frozen. You get it.
Yes. Exactly.
But like getting the guy, and these little beauties, I'm like, oh man, like, that guy's been sitting home for like the past 20 some odd years and
waiting
just
for the call,
waiting for the casting. Yeah, but I love that.
But before we get into exact specifics, I would like to bring up something that I didn't like, actually, really quickly, which was
Becky at mei-travel.com.
I know. I'm sorry. Because, and I understand. No, definitely affiliation. The one
I
thing
only have one negative thing, and I wonder if it's the same thing Becky has.
Mine was when because there was a ton of things they had to announce, and I understand why they did what they did, but it was too hard to understand, which is in the center part where Darren Criss and the other guy sang through a bunch of the announcements. That I felt was something that they shouldn't do going forward, because I literally couldn't catch all the words that they were saying. So instead of listening to and enjoying the performance, I actually turned and watched the teleprompter so that I could actually read what the lyrics were, so I could understand what they were saying when things were coming out. I think they announced like 5 or 6 things in that musical segment that you couldn't just enjoy the performance because you were trying to get the information from it. So I think that's the only thing I didn't like.
Serena just sent me a text. Oh, look at Becky. She's so cute and old. She needed...
my...
Do not throw me under the bus here.
Did she really need captions so she could understand the song?
Holy... I have so many Deadpool words for you right now. It's in hand gestures. I will not
Serena,
do because we have
Disney.
nice people.
Wait a minute.
Wait, now Becky's just texting me. Smite her and get her. Whatever. It's fine.
So, Serena, this is how he doesn't allow me to have friends. You notice?
Right.
Yeah.
I see what's happening here.
Yes, it's an ongoing issue. We've been, in therapy over it, but you know what? What are we going to do?
Corey, was your thing that you didn't like the same?
It was not, and I'll say it semi-jokingly, because it was something I would say I was disappointed, but it's also a huge highlight in that before the presentation started, they're hyping up the crowd and they were doing some Disney trivia.
Oh, I know what you're saying.
And then out comes Hiatus, which is the band that was playing from the Mad Tea Party. And so I was pumped. I was singing the Journey songs, separate ways, and I was losing it. I was like, yes, this is how I want to start it. And I was hoping it was being announced that they were going to come back, and because I love those experiences at DCA with Electronica and Mad Tea Party. Some of my best memories in the early part of my marriage with my wife is we would just spend, the evenings just watching the concerts, and then the fake snow falls. And so when they came out, I was like, oh, this is going to be amazing, which it was. I just want to see them come back.
Yeah, I'm with you there.
I had no idea who they were because I'm not a DCA. I don't do Disneyland very often. So I was just confused. I was like, do they think we're rock concert people? Because
wait, Becky just texted me. Oh, look at Serena. Isn't she so
I
know.
Wow. No, but really, I'm like, we're a bunch of Disney nerds. Like, why do you think we want to rock out? But I didn't know who they were. So I was like, okay, cool, random band.
But that's the gift, right? That's the gift that they would give. Whatever these little sort of things were, whether it was a performance, whether it was somebody coming out on stage, whether it was an announcement, everybody in the room, I'm raising my hands, might not freak out over Freaky Friday 2, but man, oh man, there was a lot of people that lost their collective little marbles in that room when they walked out on stage, when Jamie Lee Curtis came out on stage and they announced that they were a sequel to it.
Yeah, no, it's true. There is something.
Corey just texted me, what is Freaky Friday?
I know that movie. I'm a big movie nerd.
All right, we have to get into this.
Yeah,
right?
We haven't even started. We really haven't even started, which is the scary part.
And I don't know. I honestly don't know. Let's just go park by park and land by land and hope for the best. Because we talked about these things that we hoped for and we wished for and have been rumored, not just for years, but in some cases and in some of these announcements, been rumored for decades. And then one of the things that the joy that we have now that we didn't have, like when I first started doing this, and it was message boards, like even I'm really old, like pre-internet, like social media, like when there was Usenet news groups and people were sort of imagining what they wished would come. Villains Land goes back to like before Corey was born. Like people were talking about the idea of Villains Land and, will it ever come? No, it could never come. What about the fifth gate? We got so many of those things. So let's just start with that, right? Let's sort of start with the announcement that, and again, I want to quickly say, I really liked the pacing of the announcements because we're going to sort of go park by park, but Josh would make some announcements about, Walt Disney World and then move on to Disneyland. We're like, oh, That's
That's
it.
all.
But
Yeah.
we had sort of like it was this metaphorical roller coaster ride. As he'd be like, it was almost sort of the Steve Jobs like there's one more thing.
Yes.
Like, there's one more thing, but there was a lot more one more thing. Because when we were talking about this on the live show this past week, I said it was like Christmas, and your parents just keep reaching under the Christmas tree and handing you more presents.
That's exactly what it was
felt
like. Yes.
And I liked that it bounced all over the place, like you said, because it was all these little surprise and delights that were coming from everywhere. Loved it.
And some would be really big, and then they would be like something that, would be a little bit smaller. You'd be like, oh,
how cute.
Well, that's cool. Yeah, I'm good about that. And then you'd think, oh, they're tapering down, and then something really big. So, yeah, I loved the way they paced the show.
Like it almost, and I don't mean this in a bad way because there was so much. The Zootopia attraction at Disney's Animal Kingdom was almost sort of wrapped into a musical number.
Yeah.
Like it didn't almost get it because there wasn't enough time and almost like energy to give each of these like announcements their due. And you had to sort of like adjust the pacing of how do we do, like people weren't talking about Zootopia attraction coming to Animal Kingdom, which they might normally do because there were 75 other things that just sort of overshadowed it.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we are finally getting our attractions and experiences and land themed around these iconic Disney villains. We don't necessarily know what the attraction is going to be, but it is going to be this uniquely immersive experience that is very much, this might not be the first and last time we hear about this, very much sort of is a little bit of a contrast to the rest of the park. But we're getting two major attractions, dining and shopping, in what is now going to be the largest expansion in Magic Kingdom history. We can speculate as to exactly where it's going to go and what it's going to look like, but just quickly go around the horn and give me your thoughts about the announcement of a Villains Land.
This is probably the one I'm most excited for because I'm dark and twisty. Exactly. So it's just a perfect fit. But you look at the artist renderings and you can see a coaster. There's a coaster in there. I'm going to put my flag in that one. It is definitely that. But more than anything, I think I'm excited about not just what the possibilities in that land, but the dining. I mean, think about what they could do with dining in that type of villain type of theming. I'm excited about that. I'm excited about the possibilities of what characters you could do with meet and greets in there. I'm excited about not just the big attractions, but the little attractors that they tend to do throughout a land when they tell a story. The little details. I think that this is going to be one of those lands that if they are able to, if they're off the leash, they could make this something that is going to be incredible with all the little detail in all the little places. And with the current technology that's out there, I'm excited about the Villains Land. Absolutely.
Yeah, it's going to be amazing. I think this is something fans have been asking for a long time. I think there's just such huge potential with what they could do. Villains are so entertaining, and they are not constricted by the normal rules at meet and greets or in interactions with guests. So they end up being one of the best guest interactions when you get to meet them because you never know what they're going to do. And having a whole land theme to that, especially in this sort of sitting in the contrast to Fantasyland, Fantasyland being there and kind of moving through that into this now new dark area. I just think that's every classic fairy tale that this is what Disney does best in their storytelling. There's always a villain. So yeah, I can't wait to see. Lou, I'm curious, when they said specifically two major attractions. And a lot of times here recently, when they open a land, there'll be one sort of e-ticket big ride and one smaller, like less investment ride. When you hear the words major, do you think that they mean that both of these would be what we would call an e-ticket attraction, or do you think that that's just sort of verbiage?
So it's interesting because you wonder sort of how are they going to position this land, right? Something else we're going to talk about. They are very clearly going to make an attraction that is a thrill attraction, as well as one that is going to be very specifically designed to be family friendly. Everybody and, little kids and grandma can ride as well. When you come into a villains themed land, Are you still doing that? Is that still the focus? Is that the attention? Are they going to be e-ticket larger than life, or are you going to ensure, and I think it's going to be the latter as I'm thinking out loud to the question, I think you have to make attractions that are going to be as accessible in the broadest stroke of that brush, accessible to as many people as possible. I don't just mean physically and other ways sort of accessible to guests, but accessible to guests of all ages and things like that, etc. So I think, and this is where a lot of the speculation about not a lot of these announcements is coming from, is where this is going to be positioned, how it is going to be laid into the actual location. And I'm curious to hear where you all think it's actually going to go. It's also going to play a part because how much real estate are we looking at? A coaster takes up a pretty large footprint for the most part. If that's what they're going to bring in, is there going to be some sort of water? Look, we can analyze and break down, as I'm sure many people have done, the concept art and just what it is going to be. Is it a walk-through attraction? Is it a water-based attraction? Is it a coaster-based attraction? But I think you have to make sure it's something that, especially for something like Villains, is going to be able to appeal and welcome every guest for the most part.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. You wouldn't want to have a new land and there's not something in it for everyone to some degree. I think
especially in the Magic
sense.
Kingdom.
Yeah, especially in the Magic Kingdom. Absolutely. You can definitely, in the concept art, you can definitely see a coaster. You see, it looks like there's inversions. It looks like there's sort of basing it on the twisted thorns of Maleficent's, vines. So I think that's really cool. I also, in the concept art, you can see some water features that are there, some underground looking sort of things. Cavernous.
It looks like the coaster goes underwater. Yeah. Like there's a water feature that it's underneath.
Or maybe it's just that the water is coming alongside of
over
it. Or over it. I think that's really, really interesting. There's definitely not renderings for that second attraction. Like it's not clear. So they're not really giving us much on what the second one would be. But
there's a castle, there's a big castle sort of off to the side, as well as there's also one sort of on a cliff, which may just be like a
kind of like Beast Castle,
like a floating mountain or like a floating mountain in Avatar. In Pandora.
Yeah.
Or it looks like the Tangled tower in off in the background with forced perspective.
Yeah.
There's a Maleficent that's not on fire, which is nice.
Yes, and there is a Maleficent dragon in the concept art. Now, is that just there for vibes, or is that there because there will be an actual Maleficent dragon there? I can't wait to see what they do. I mean, again, there's technology now that they could do a couple different things with that. So,
which is exciting.
Yeah, and I think too, we have to if we're going to talk about Magic Kingdom, we have to discuss what's coming adjacent to this area, because that's sort of part of this. The largest expansion of Magic Kingdom in history is not just the Villains Land, but what we learned coming next door to it.
You're obviously talking about the Pirates of the Caribbean Tavern.
Obviously, that's
I'm excited about that.
I am too. I mean, we'll quickly touch on this. I was sort of saying it half jokingly. I like this idea of immersive dining experiences, right? Sort of akin to an Oga's Cantina, and truly thematic based dining, but is going to be obviously in something in a very family friendly type of space, themed around. Be curious to see sort of what it looks like. Is it going to be more of a is it going to be like Oga's, like just quick drinks and snacks, or is there going to be of a more a larger menu and dining experience like that?
Yeah, I'm interested too.
Okay, fine. Let's go.
We kind of have to go there. We kind of have to.
Let's talk about the giant mater in the room. Among the nobody on planet Earth ever saw this coming, and all the speculation that we've done, not just recently, but I think over the years, there always has been talk about a Cars theme attraction coming to Walt Disney World. Are they going to copy and paste Radiator Springs? I have always felt, please don't do that. I want to have something that is unique to both. They did, right? And they listened, and they are bringing not just a Cars attraction, but a Cars land to Walt Disney World, featuring 2 attractions, a high-speed rally race through mountains with geysers and mud holes. So it's going to be a thrill-seeking adventure ride. More, it sounds different than sort of the test track-like race that we have in Disney California Adventure. Again, the second one is a family-friendly attraction suitable for younger guests that allows them to explore the land at a little bit more of a leisurely pace. I think that makes absolute sense. Construction is going to begin early next year.
Mm-hmm. And they said that this will be a separate story, separate from Radiator Springs, where the characters are leaving Radiator Springs and going on a road trip across the frontier, maybe, as you would say. And that will be in this reimagined section of Frontierland. Then the sort of the vibe is the American West. And so that's how it will tie into the existing Frontierland, but also how it sort of aesthetically is a similar theme or look to Radiator Springs without it being Radiator Springs.
So I'm really, really happy that, because we talked about this in the prediction show, because we came up with it and said, geez, please don't be Cars Land. Please don't be Cars Land, because we didn't want there to be an exact copy, just as you mentioned, Lou. But the one concern I have about it, and this is why I kind of go, I love it. I love cars. Don't get me wrong. Spin around. But is that it's outdoors too, right? So it's kind of like that test track scenario that goes down anytime it rains or when the weather isn't cooperating. So I'm concerned that if this is a totally outdoor type scenario, how much downtime is this going to have?
Becky's only concerned because she just doesn't like the Florida heat. She's like, the attraction's not air conditioned, and that's really what I'm worried about.
Wow.
Yeah.
No, but okay, yeah.
But yes.
But no, I mean, I think about that because especially when you have this promise to kids to, come and enjoy this attraction, because we hear it a lot from people that returned when there's been a guest dissatisfier. So my brain sometimes goes to the worst case scenario. So while I'm excited for the possibility of this, I'm also seeing that there could be some potential problems. But then again, knowing WDI, they probably thought their way around all of this. Yeah. So it's just the things that hit my brain.
The concept art looks cool. Mm-hmm. We're getting sort of this racing ride, and it looks trackless to me. I don't know if it is, but it looks like it's a very sprawling sort of track that's going in and around and over things and under things and through a large area, which looks really cool. I think I'm not a Cars fan, so this was all kind of like, sure, fine, that's whatever. I know Cars is a really popular franchise for a lot of people. Mm-hmm. I think the biggest sort of dissent in the internet, in the interwebs, has been the location when we found out that it was going to be replacing the Rivers of America and Tom Sawyer Island. My take on this is the people that are getting really upset, I would ask, when was the last time that you took that little raft over to Tom Sawyer Island? And if the answer to that question is the very last time I went to Magic Kingdom, then I would be like, proceed. Proceed with your upset.
I have a different take on it too, because I get it. I like we said at the very beginning, our memories, many of our memories are tied to this with our families, who some of us don't have. Our families have passed on. So you go on Tom Sawyer Island and you see it, and you feel the people that you've lost and all the memories that are tied together. But then I have to stop and think, if the park had held on to all the attractions and spaces from the first generations of visitors, then would it be as relevant for us today? Right? So you kind of have to embrace a little bit of change and putting away some of the things that we're like. Tom Sawyer is not that relevant to today's 6 and 7 year olds. Right? So I get it. I know why we're upset. I know why the internet's lighting itself on fire. I understand it and I get it, but I also understand that for the progress that we need to make to move forward, to be relevant to the generations in front of us, that these changes have to be made.
Yeah. Okay. So I shared, and I tried. So when I did a show on Wednesday night, which really was not about me sharing my thoughts. I wanted to hear from you. It's what I love about live video, is being able to get your feedback, your reaction, your thoughts, and just sort of take the temperature and pulse. let me start first by sort of laying my own sort of foundational groundwork. Because, and again, timing is everything, right? The timing of the release of this part of the announcement did not come on Saturday night. It did come on Monday via the blog. I will touch on that. When I first heard about this, right, and I'm very much admittedly, I am a nostalgic. I am a sentimentalist. From a purely emotional standpoint, like, I understand the sadness. Like, I get it. Like, I remember going to Tom Sawyer Island as a kid. I remember going to Tom Sawyer Island with my kids. I remember being on the Barrel Bridge a year ago, like, just walking, like, with friends. Like, I think I get it. That being said, I also think that we, fortunately or unfortunately, we need to think about this from a business perspective as well. You also have to think that when announcements like this are being made, and this is not just about cars and villains, but these attractions are not, and let me explain, they are not being built for us. They're not being necessarily built for you and I, the older, quote unquote, generation of Disney fans. They are being built for our kids and their kids, the same way these attractions were built for the kids who grew up watching Tom Sawyer, 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, Westward Ho, The Wagons, Davy Crockett. Like, has any kid, unless your parents are making you do it, has any kid sat down and like, I really want to watch Davy Crockett again?
Yeah.
They're not. But at the time, that's what was popular. It was being built for those kids. These attractions are being built for my kids to take their kids to and go, I grew up watching Cars. Like, this means so much to me. Like, Josh even talked about this sort of generational experience. So that being said, I want to take as objective a view as possible. Right? In terms of the timing of the announcement, like, I get it. I'm sure they wrestled with that. I might honestly have waited maybe even a little bit longer, just sort of to let the high of the moment of Saturday continue on for a while. I think I also get releasing it on the blog, right? Because if you would have done it in the room, I think it potentially could have and would have overshadowed the event itself. And I think Disney knew that, right? We talked about, again, it's this recurring thing, right? And I say always jokingly, like, if you want to make Disney fans lose their minds, tell them that you're changing something, case in point, right? This is it. Like many attractions that have come before it, Maelstrom, Adventures Club, Snow White, Horizons, World of Motion, Timekeeper. If you had wings, the list goes on and on. There are certain things that we love, but we don't always show it by going, right? I call it the ex-girlfriend effect. Like, I don't pay enough attention to you, and then you leave, and then I'm sad, and I really want you to come back. Like, no, I promise I'll ride Maelstrom every single day. Well, you didn't. Like, Serena, you're right. Like, who, and again, if you do, mazel tov. Like, but how many of us are going to Tom Sawyer Island? And also, again, if we look at it from a purely disassociated to a certain degree view, there's a lot of reasons to not keep Tom Sawyer Island.
Yeah.
There's, again, let's think if we're Disney, there's zero merchandise. It is a zero revenue generator. There's not even food on there.
Right.
It's not inclusive, right? There's a lot of folks with special needs or abilities that cannot experience any part of Tom Sawyer Island. It's closed more than 50% of the time that Magic Kingdom is actually open. It's very, very costly to maintain.
Footprint. It's a huge footprint.
The lawyer in me started thinking it's an injury liability. Like,
a liability,
let's put kids,
absolutely.
Right, let's put kids in these dark caves with jagged rocks and just send them
I
off.
know.
Like in the 50s.
I think about that every time I go. I'm like, how is this?
Right, I think we were a lot less litigious in the 50s and the 70s. Look, I get it that it is a relaxing place to go, but it's also not necessarily integrated the same way Disneyland's is, right? There's no Explorer canoes. There is no Phantasmic. And when this attraction opens, there is going to be a lot of other positive secondary and tertiary effects to it. It is going to help with something that we all complain about, which is dispersing the crowds.
Yep.
You now have this e-ticket attraction that's going to draw crowds away from some of the other attractions that have very long times. This is going to make wait times go down on other attractions. Tom Sawyer does not do that, right? It doesn't do it. I get it. Please understand. Like, if I turn that off, I love this place. I love this park. Magic Kingdom remains my favorite place. It is visually pleasing. I love the serenity of it. I like riding on the riverboat, which I don't necessarily, I think the riverboat's going away. I don't think the river is going away. I love the sounds of the river. We did the sound show. Like, I was like, I love the sound of that riverboat horn. So I get it. But, you know, think back. Like, remember when Snow White closed for a meet and greet? Remember when Universe of Energy closed for something that has absolutely nothing to do with Epcot or Walt's vision of what, when 20,000 Leagues closed, when the Streets of America closed for Star Wars? Like, these are all things that were nostalgic and fun, but how many times were you going to Lights, Motors, Action?
Yeah.
How many times were you necessarily going to ride? So, you know, like, my son is like, wants to chain himself to Dinosaur. Like, where's the outrage? Like, where's the outrage for Dinosaur? And like, and I don't want to speak for somebody else. I literally asked Tom Sawyer about this. Like, I talked to Tom Nabby about it, who played Tom Sawyer, and he's like, I get the emotion, but from a business perspective, like, this makes total sense.
Yeah.
And I think this starts to bring up a broader question, right? This idea of, you know, removing classic and beloved attractions. Like, just because we have memories, it doesn't necessarily mean that people still go there. It doesn't necessarily mean, like, does it mean that we can't remove things that people don't go to anymore purely for sentimental reasons? Like, I'm not sure that that's the case.
Yeah.
You know, this attraction is 50 plus years old. And when people say, well, what would Walt do? You know, Walt was not alive long enough to see an attraction be in Disneyland for 40 years to say, hey, it's time to swap this out for something else.
Yeah.
And I think when on Wednesday, I sort of talked about sort of the metaphorical toy box, right? And that's what Magic Kingdom is, right? It's sometimes you have to take things out of the toy box to get, like, you can only put so many toys in there. And if you get a new toy, sometimes you have to take something out. You can't just keep getting new toys or a bigger, like a bigger and bigger toy box, and especially the ones that maybe, you know, that you haven't played with in a long time. I think that's what Disney is doing. They are replacing these toys in the toy box. So I can argue both sides, because that's what they teach you in law school how to do.
Well, I think too,
but I also understand, I think there's positives from it too.
Yeah. I think too, like, I understand that, you know, the sort of, well, don't take anything away, just give us new, which I get. But the footprint of Magic Kingdom, like, there's logistics too of, like, how much can you walk? Like, if you're walking to the back of, like, where Big Thunder is, you have walked far, and now it's going to extend more. Like, how much more can you go before it kind of makes sense to take out something that's taking up a lot of space in the middle and make better use of that? And there is sort of the argument of, like, you don't want to lose the park and theme park. There's green spaces and water movement, and all of those things are very, like, important. You need brain breaks. You can't just go from ride to ride. You know, like, you need that too. But we also don't know what we're getting yet. Like,
that's
right.
Exactly.
That
That's my
could be
point.
built in there, right?
Because a ton of people are kind of losing it over, oh my gosh, we're going to have no green, and it's going to be this mountain, it's going to be this mud thing. It's like, wait, we haven't heard. We don't know what we're getting and not getting. So I want to reserve judgment on that. And I think Disney's actually done a good job of thinking about making sure that the park remains in park. The hub, for example, in Walt Disney World, where there's trees and there's green space and there's quiet space, which of course turns into crazy come parade and fireworks time. But it is those spaces that you can just sit for a minute. I don't think that they're not going to think about that. So I want to just hold back and wait and see what the actual result is going to be of this design before I get all upset about losing it.
I don't think the river's going away. I think the river will still be there, and we might get more water features. Like, if they're building sort of mountainous spaces, they can use those like they do in Pandora to create additional water features.
Yeah, I think so too. Go ahead.
I would say I think Disney's well aware of that, right? In the sense that they listen to fan feedback and things like that. They're paying attention to what we're losing, and they know that if they take down the Haunted Mansion, people are worried that something's going to be fundamentally changed, kind of thing, right? So when you talk about Tom Sawyer Island going away, they're aware of the nostalgia being, messed with, and they know that there's something to deliver there. And I think, they're paying attention enough to where we can give them that trust that they're going to do what they think is right, and knowing that what our opinions are as well. And like Becky said, it's not fair to compare a ride that we saw one piece, maybe two pieces of concept art against a ride that's, an island that's been around for 40, 50 years. It's not a fair comparison to the ride, and we have to give it the time to breathe.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's a lot of people with pitchforks out on X, especially, and and I said this on Wednesday. Like, look, I get the sentiment, I get the emotion, I get the passion, I love it, I dig it. Like, I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for that. But we also need to keep things in perspective and like be civil to one another.
Yeah,
like,
please.
I'm gonna choose the good kind of guy. Like, you can have differences of opinions, but be civil and human to each other about a theme park attraction. Now, I will potentially stir the pot like just a little bit because I was thinking about this too. Look, I'm not blind to what is happening, right? Look, I created 7 audio tours about the story of Magic Kingdom, right? That takes us through these lands that are connected. And I get 99% of the people don't know, don't care, like nerd alert, like the transition from Fantasyland to Liberty Square to Frontierland to Adventureland, it makes sense. There is this sort of overarching yet very much hidden in plain sight story. When you bring Cars Land into this space, and I welcome your thoughts on this, you are to a certain degree changing the fabric and storyline of Magic Kingdom, and I understand. I think this is why some people are getting very upset. Mm-hmm. You could make an argument almost that Villain's Land might do this a little bit too, depending on where it might go and how it, because, transitioning from Liberty Square, yes, maybe you go through past Haunted Mansion to get there, but into Villain's Land does not tie into that story. The somewhat rhetorical question I have for you, maybe I shouldn't say this, but is Liberty Square next, right? Is Liberty Square, are there places that are completely untouchable, or should the story remain, or does Magic Kingdom need to continue to evolve to ever-changing guests' wants and desires and ages and experiences, and coming from a number of not just places domestically, but internationally as well? Like, is it okay to continue down this trend and say, look, maybe Hall of Presidents is not the most popular attraction anymore. It inherently, there's issues, right? I don't need to sort of explain. There's issues. Does the story of Liberty Square potentially change a little bit if, I don't think anybody would argue if Muppets went into the Hall of Presidents.
That's
but,
what I was thinking, yeah.
But all of a sudden, it's not Walt's vision of Liberty Square anymore. Talk amongst yourselves.
Yeah, I that's
Wow.
that's the overarching challenge to the Disney company as a whole. I feel like they have this they walk this line between being innovators and being technologically advanced and bringing in technology mixed with entertainment and education, but then they also have this really strong attachment to nostalgia, to childhood, to the decades that they've existed. I mean, it's a 100-year company. So determining what they want to keep and what they want to move on from is really challenging. I feel like that's really hard to say. I do think that I would hate to have anything rash done just because things come and go. Sometimes things in a moment are not the PC thing, but then if you give it another decade, they look back and we're like wishing that we had them, because now we see sort of the way that this thing fits more in the history or the fabric of the culture that we are building together. I think that's just a really challenging thing that they have to deal with. And I don't think there's a right answer. I don't think there's an answer that will please even
Yeah.
the majority
You're
of
never going
people.
to please everybody.
Yeah,
and
I
that's
completely
the
agree
problem.
that is the problem, and it's the story has to evolve. To me, I truly believe, again, going back, if the parks had stayed the way that they were when it was built in the 70s, would it be relevant? So you have to have a little bit of gumption to say, hey, we have to evolve this. We have to create or continue the chapters of the story, and sometimes you have to kind of go off script a little bit and appeal to that next generation that's going to keep people coming back. And yeah, stirring that pot when you said if we lose Muppets, I wouldn't be angry about it coming into Hall of Presidents and getting rid of that whole problem that they have there. There's a lot of opportunity, but I would hate to be the person making these decisions, because you're not going to make everybody happy. You're going to have somebody trying to come at you with a pitchfork on X, and there's just no really avoiding it. So I guess you just do the best you can by what you want to do from a company perspective and go forward with it and hope that it's for the best of the majority of the people that are going to visit your parks and spend money in it.
And long term, Becky, right?
Yeah.
It needs to be a guest satisfier, not for for us over the next 5-10 years, but for the next 40 years.
Yeah.
And that means, what do our kids want, right? Our kids are going, look, my kids are going to ride a Cars attraction and take their kids and be like, this is what I grew up on, more than they ever will for Tom Sawyer Island.
Yeah.
Right? It's why Country Bears had to change.
Yeah.
Like it did.
Absolutely.
Nobody was like storming the gates of Country Bear, like, I need to rope drop Country Bears tonight because I need to, my 5-year-old is begging. I mean, as a 5-year-old, I probably begged for it, but I'm a nerd.
But the same thing
changes
for me.
like this make sense.
Yeah,
right?
the same thing for me back in Disneyland. I remember my father taking me on the Sky Ride. I have those memories. They're ingrained in me. That's one of the things that I love about Disney. And the Sky Ride went away, but the memories didn't. I still hold on to that. So hopefully people will be able to do that as well, is hold on to this nostalgia, because things do need to change. The story needs to progress to be relevant for future generations.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And that's it. And I agree with you 1,000%. Things change and we have to sort of, and look, time has a way of healing all wounds. This wound will look the same way as let's call them the pitchfork people. The pitchfork people on Twitter next, who were like, do you remember the days I am never, ever going to step foot in Disney's Animal Kingdom because they're putting Pandora in there.
Yeah.
The lines for Flight of Passage speak otherwise, right?
Yeah.
So we understand and we adapt, right? We understand that this is, Disney is not a place, we use sort of the Walt euphemism of it not being a museum. It does need to change. And I don't know Walt, but I would have to assume, look, Walt was a businessman who was a very smart businessman who'd say, look, this is good for business, not just for business today, but good for business generationally going forward.
Exactly.
So,
and we want that business to be healthy, because then that brings us more great, exciting attractions and more great announcements. So yeah,
look, there's still a guy in Epcot who chained himself to the gate because he's upset about the harmonious barges go away.
Yeah.
Yeah, we drop him some popcorn every once in a while when we walk by.
So I get it. And look,
me too.
Like I said, especially I think, Serena, like as locals, when we go to Magic Kingdom, we might not go to Tom Sawyer Island, but that place and that space and the serenity of walking along that boardwalk and having that off to our left or right, that is an attraction that not necessarily is a place that we go to. But I think we also have to understand, not just from a business perspective, but from a guest perspective, what is going to make more guests more happy? Is it the serene views of the Liberty, Bell going by that most people aren't going to ride? Or is it these two Cars attractions that are going to satisfy guests who love the movies, their kids and their kids beyond them?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that they know what they're doing. To your point about Ellen's Energy Adventure, like that was, a very nostalgic ride for us. And we did it with our kids when they were little and all that. But Guardians is the best attraction at Disney World right now. Like, I wouldn't give that up to have Ellen's back. I wouldn't. Like that's one of the best attractions there is. So let's give them an opportunity to get these things in and to know, okay, if they're taking away a water element, then maybe they're going to be adding a water element. Or if they're taking away a green space, they're going to be let's let them get it in there before we hate on it.
Right.
Exactly.
Look at places, even places like Streets of America, right? It was this long. Remember when the studios opened? The backlot tour was 2 hours. Like, it was a 2 hour, like, very slow moving. But
so
you had all
crazy.
these sets. When Streets of America goes away for Star Wars, what do you think is a? Yes, we lose that aesthetic, right? We lose that experience. But what do you think is a much greater guest satisfier?
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's still like
Actually, I have to
Osborne
go-
back though. But
I need to go pick up my son. I need to pick up my son from Dinosaur. He's still
Unchain him from whatever tree he's chained
right.
to.
That's what I love though about Disney fans is everybody attaches to things differently. Like Rivers of America and Tom Sawyer Island, I was like, okay, sure. I don't really have an opinion on that either way. Muppets, on the other hand, which we might potentially be losing, there's some discussion about. There's another big area that we're getting added to Hollywood Studios, and we don't have confirmation of where that's going to go just yet. So that would be like a lot more disappointing to me, but then other people would feel the exact opposite. So it's all just depends on who you're talking to.
Yeah.
Right. We'll talk about, again, the untouchables, right? What is untouchables when we get there.
Yeah.
Before we leave Magic Kingdom and go, though, there is one more thing.
Yes.
And again, it's the thing that so many people predicted and so many people wanted. My son literally is standing out front. He's been standing out front for 10 minutes and doesn't have his keys. Hold on. I'll be right back.
Okay.
I guess this is an edit. Edit right here.
I thought he
What
was
mark
going
are we
to
at?
say something about Dinosaur again. Like, no, he's
I was
literally
too.
standing out front.
My gosh. Edit mark at 145, 45.
Yes, good to know.
Yeah.
Out of this whole list, I think we've talked about.
I was going to say, we are 2 hours in and we've talked about two things. 2 hours in, and I'm 2 hours in. Oh, wait till I get, dude. Your mark was 145:40, FYI.
Yeah.
And we're 2 hours in and we've talked about two things.
We're almost done.
We're almost done.
But the other stuff is easy. Okay, sorry. One of the biggest things on people's wish lists was a new nighttime parade coming to Walt Disney World.
Yay! Yay!
You got what's right. Dreams really come true.
They really do.
At D23 and the theme parks. Disney Starlight Parade isn't just coming; it's coming soon.
Yeah.
Summer 2025, with characters from Encanto, Frozen, Peter Pan, which I love still. The classics, and more. Lights, music, magic, new technology. Thoughts?
A new night parade, not just a parade. A parade is always a great thing. Like, I'll take any parade because Disney parades are always my favorite and they're always a must-do to me. But a nighttime parade, we haven't seen them even create a nighttime parade in a while. So getting to see what they can come up with for their number one theme park in the world, I'm so excited. The concept art looks beautiful. The name looks beautiful. The fact that they said Peter Pan, I'm in. I don't need to know anything else. And the fact that it's going to be as early as next year. I love that.
It needed it so badly. I think that was the one place that on the prediction show, I'm like, this has to happen. It absolutely has to happen because I fell in love with the nighttime parades at Paint the Night. Mm-hmm. And I really understood, and of course the Halloween parade too, because you have to have that darkness to pull off the grave diggers and all the things that you do there. But the nighttime affords so much more spectacular, so much more elevation in what you can do with lighting, and it comes to life so much better. So having that as a missing element for so long, they had to bring it back. I'm so excited. This is going to be great to see again with the step up in technology since the last ones that they had. I can't wait to see what they do.
The Blue Fairy.
Yeah, the Blue Fairy and her magic.
Did you guys ever see Spectrum Magic? Because that was my first nighttime parade.
Yeah.
And
the song is playing in my head, Serena.
That to me is always the level that, it needs to reach in terms of just the emotion of that parade for me. Yeah, I'm so excited. And I'm really hoping that this will mean a return to a later park closing time for Magic Kingdom, which is something they've gotten away from. And it really affects the crowd levels of the park. When you have, I know just visiting Disneyland last week, they're open till midnight almost every night. And so you can go in at 8:00 and you've got 4 hours still to enjoy that park. So I hope that this will mean that the nighttime will kind of have a more expansive return.
Which is how you can almost help justify something like a Cars mini land like that, because Tom Sawyer Island, which is always has to close at dusk, you now have another large footprint where guests can continue to go at night, not just to disperse crowds, but I think, to your point, to make the park stay open later.
Yeah.
I'm a lawyer. I can justify anything.
Yeah.
Right. Let's quickly. I want to quickly move through
Quickly.
Epcot. Yes, quickly move through. I'm trying desperately. In Epcot, the reimagined test track is also going to open in 2025. I think we said like there's going to be 8 new things opening in Walt Disney World in 2025. Again, this is not just going to be a retheming of Test Track, but there is going to be this customization, this personal. What I like is not just interactive experiences, but personal experiences, and this fresh take on a quote unquote scenic outdoor route. The family-friendly Spaceship Earth Lounge is going to be opening also in 2025. We know sort of where that space is. If you're looking at the Walt statue, look up, you can see those windows there. Becky is sad because she's like, oh, it's an event space.
It's one of my favorite event spaces, and I get it. I understand, but that's going to be my favorite drinking space is what you're saying, right?
Yeah. It's Becky at mei-travel.com. Over at Disney's Animal Kingdom, again, the Zootopia Better Zoogether is going to replace It's Tough to Be a Bug. Let the riots begin.
I'm okay with that.
Tough to Be a Bug fan.
I'm okay with that.
But this is a perfect example, Becky, of like my kids, like they grew up on Tough to Be a Bug. Like I remember watching that, as a somewhat adult and then with my kids, but they love Zootopia more, right? So people are okay with this attraction.
It's traumatizing, that attraction.
Exactly. when that thing goes under
hitting you
butt.
in the back. What?
Yes.
Who thought
of
this?
And then the spider coming out of the ceiling. Okay, I can deal with snakes. I can deal with almost anything. Spiders I can't deal with.
No, thank
that
you.
freaked me out, and I don't think I've ridden it 3 times or been on it.
Listen, the fact that we're losing Cheech from Disney's Animal Kingdom is really over in the tropical Americas, Pueblo Esperanza, which I think means Hope Town, is going to replace
Village of Hope.
Close enough. I'm missing the language. I'm not very good at languages. This is not just replacing Dinoland USA. It's going to be 11 acres with 2 major attractions. Right, we got more details about Indiana Jones going through the Mayan temple. Like, sign me up. I am all over it.
All new story.
Yeah.
Even if if they just brought the Indy ride from Disneyland, I would have actually been happy with that. But I'm so thrilled that they're giving us a new story. That just means new tech.
And that's the cool thing about it. Again, it's not cookie cutter. While it might be the same track, that whatever, they're bringing an entire story about it around the mythical creature rather than being about the ball falling on you. So this is, I'm excited that they're doing this, and which makes me even more engaged in this land.
11 acres, is that bigger than Dinoland is now, or is that the footprint of Dinoland? I wonder.
Right.
I don't know.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know exactly if they are going to sort of. If you look at the concept art, well, I'm going to say it's bigger, right? Because of the next attraction is the Encanto themed ride, where we're going to sort of go into this magical casita, into Antonio's rainforest room, like not like on the Disney Cruise Line rainforest room, because that would be weird, but the rainforest room in an attraction that's going to open in 2027. If we looked at the concept model at the Imagineering Pavilion, it does look like it expands sort of beyond where the current footprint of the attractions in Animal Kingdom currently sits. But I'm not 100% sure. I haven't sort of done a sort of a layover of.
I'm so excited about Casita. Antonio communicating with the animals. I love that movie. That's one of my favorites now. And to tie it together into the Americas plus the animals for Animal Kingdom, that was brilliant. And it looks like, I can't tell if it's going to be a trackless or if it's going to be a water. I'm not exactly sure, but they were saying that the vehicles are going to be furniture within the house. that move you around, which I think that that's very cool because Casita comes to life and helps you experience it. So I'm really, really excited about this concept.
Yeah, I would love if we got something sort of like Mickey's Runaway Railway type of trackless thing through Casita, interacting with it. I think that could be just so cool. And Encanto is just fabulous in terms of the vibe, the music, the colors. Like there's so much that Imagineers can really sink their teeth into with that.
And then on the
Corey,
outside,
I was saying, Corey, when we were going through the Imagineering booth, we were looking at, because they had a representative model there, and the way it looks is that the attraction isn't going to, it's like the Haunted Mansion. The attraction doesn't take place like in the show, the show building doesn't take place in the house itself, but like Haunted Mansion is in a building that occupies a pretty large space behind it. Because I wasn't sure if it was going to be like a walkthrough or something like that.
Yeah, it definitely looks like the entrance to the house is blocked off or walled off by like stones, and then you would walk around almost like in Haunted Mansion around the backside. And it did look like the show building kind of broke the barrier of where the original land would be to go backstage of where it is. And it almost might have to be depending on the size of the attraction. But it looks beautiful, and I can't wait for the food. So
which makes sense. That outside makes sense because Casita can also come to life on the exterior. So you don't have to actually go on the attraction if they choose to do that. You can see the candle. Obviously, her shutter's open. She speaks through her actions. So I can see that exterior could be a show in itself, or an attraction itself.
And they said we'll have a large hacienda, which would be one of the largest quick service restaurants. That'd be cool.
You had me at quick service restaurant. All right, let's make our way over to Disney's Hollywood Studios, quickly touching on Millennium Falcon Smuggler's Run in 2026.
Yay!
It's going to get a new mission featuring Mandalorian and Grogu, which is going to align specifically with the Mandalorian movie, getting a new adventure. It's what these attractions were built for in this way that they can sort of easily kind of plug and play. And like they think they do so well in Disneyland, being able to time it, hopefully appropriately, with the release of the movie, we get these new characters and experiences there. Continuing on to
the other big one,
right? That's it.
Right. It's one of those things that like you swell my heart, and then you start like, wait a minute, hold it a second. Monsters Inc. Look, when Billy Crystal came out, I'm like, what is happening here? Right. Yeah. There's a new, not attraction, but a land around Monsters Inc. featuring the first ever suspended coaster in a Disney park, taking us through the iconic door scene from the film. Construction begins in 2025. Year. This is one of those things. This room, and it's funny because somebody actually had messaged me saying, I was listening to one of your prediction shows or rumor shows from 2007, which is when the rumor was that they had closed Who Wants to Be a Millionaire Play It. They had for that area of Mickey Avenue, supposedly a Monsters Inc. attraction, a door coaster attraction, was greenlit. Again, this is pre-Toy Story Land for that space. I think this is one of those cases where no good idea at Imagineering ever dies. And they sort of pull it off the shelf, they dust it off and go, wait a minute. Now we can now is the best time to do this because we have the attraction, we have the technology to create and do something for guests that has never been done in the parks before.
Yeah. Super excited for this one. I think Monsters Inc. is such a beloved franchise. I'm interested to see if this means that maybe there's another movie coming. Now that you're sort of reinvesting into that, that would kind of make sense that maybe down the road we'll get another piece of the story. That they're building Monstropolis, which I think is so cool. So it's a full land that you're going to get to visit, which I think is really just interesting. Like the aesthetics to Monsters Inc. are really unique and really cool. Like the sort of retro, I don't know. It's really, there's a lot that they can do with it. I'm hoping, we still don't have confirmation on a location. I would love if it was over by Animation Courtyard, just because you've already got a Pixar place there. Not Pixar Place. What is it called? Pixar. It's like a little area that they tried to go with Pixar, but like it didn't fully. It's just like kind of like a little throughway in between Toy Story Land. I feel like that would just flow so well if they put it there. Plus, I really don't want them to mess with Muppets.
Yeah, and that's the interesting
this is
thing.
This is the issue, right?
Yeah, and I love the way they did this to us too. Where if you look at the concept art, there's two concept arts, right? And one appears to be in one location, another appears to be in another location.
And when
So-
I heard
That's
that
what I
one
was
was
gonna bring up.
old, I heard that one was maybe
Yeah.
done earlier. So
Right, like 4 years ago.
So who really knows? And
I think, you know what they're doing? They're like, hey, watch this. I'm going to put a little water tower all the way in the back and just
to
freak
mess
people
with
out.
to see what happens. Exactly. But I
We
do
are hung up on the water tower. Like, wait, that's Gonzo's. It must be Muppets. And everybody's changing
Lose our
themselves to
mind.
Muppets.
Exactly. And again, I know, I get it. Muppets was the first place I ever saw 3D. So, I mean, it's like back to that
So
again.
good.
But regardless of where it goes, I will say that this was the big surprise for me.
yeah,
Because I didn't see Monsters Inc. coming at an investment level of this, because I honestly didn't really realize it was that relevant to the generations, and maybe that's just because I haven't been following along with it. But the moment that it was announced, that room went crazy, and then when they showed the suspension coasters, it's like, all right, now I get it. Going through that and being in there for the doors, imagine going through different doors, and yeah, this is cool. This is an amazing concept. And then
And the door picking up.
Yeah.
Like the door ascending from the ground. You could see that on the track too,
Yeah.
that it looks like it picks you up before it lets you go. So
and I want to know how much those ice cream cones are going to be, because
No. You're all missing. You are all missing the most important aspect. I'm taking my glasses off for a
Okay,
fact.
okay.
The most important aspect is that in the background, I saw the cross chopsticks of Harryhausen. If they serve sushi in Monstropolis, I am going to lose my.
Oh, that would
So
be
here's a trivia
perfect.
question for
that
you.
would be awesome, wouldn't it?
Here's a trivia
Good
question for
Asian
you.
food in Hollywood
Oh,
studios.
stop it, Serena.
Oh
Like,
my gosh, ramen
I'm
bowls and
Oh my God! But in that,
Now I'm
like,
hungry.
imagine walking
I
into
know.
Harryhausen's. Right, that little sort of almost throwaway scene
Yes.
can make for such a great experience.
absolutely.
true.
Celia could be in there somewhere.
Oh my God, Coaster Schmoster.
Yes.
Give me the sushi place. Give me Harryhausen's. Like,
Absolutely.
so here's a trivia question for you.
Oh boy.
Don't look it up. What year did Monsters Inc. come out?
I think it was
97.
98?
I think it was 99. I'm trying to
No,
think.
I thought you were going to say
2000.
later.
It was
So it came out 2001.
It came
Oh.
2001.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, but this goes to the point. It's not sort of look back, but when we talk about things like cars, right? Look at who this attraction is going to,
Lion
like,
King.
the reason why people are losing their marbles too, because this is what so many of the kids who are in that audience grew up with.
Yeah.
Like,
Right.
people are like, well, why are you making an attraction that's 20-year-old? Because this for them is not 20 years old. It's the thing that was
The
such
thing.
an important part of their childhood. And I think there's so much story that could be told there,
Yeah.
right? It's not within the confines of the movies or even the Disney Plus series.
Yeah. There's a lot they could do with that, and a lot of just, theming and aesthetics that they could go into with that would just be really, really fun.
And I think we're like, for some people it's fun. For some people it seems to be life or death. If they like whether or not it's going to go into across from on Grand Avenue, is it going to go into? Look, once again, and I grew up on the Muppets. I love the Muppets. I like. Are you running to Muppet Vision every time you go to the parks? Probably not. Are you running to Pizza Rizzo for the best pizza in Central Florida? Also probably not. Is that space over there, like, is there sections of that area that have been closed down and sort of barren for a while? It makes sense. But I also, on the flip side of the coin, I get it was Jim Henson's the last thing he worked on. We all have a connection to Muppets. Like, I get it. Like, I get it and I love it, and my kids grew up with it, and I could recite Muppet Vision 3D because I'm a total nerd, right? We all probably could. This goes back to what's untouchable, right? Or do you close it and be like, yeah, but we're going to put Muppets in Hall of Presidents
Somewhere
so,
else.
You still get, right, you still get
That's
Muppets
what I'm
somewhere else.
hoping, that if they do that, because, all right, from a business financial aspect, that whole area, it has a restaurant already. You can easily retheme it. There's a kitchen there. That's awesome. You've got the show building that you can work with. You got space. On the other side, where they're talking about, you can't really expand back beyond it. There's business. There's buildings with office buildings back there.
Wait, hold on a second, Becky. Hold on. Wait, let me just open up x.com at Becky Mackey.
What? Oh, my
Wants
God.
to kill. Wait, she
Wow.
wants to Kill the Muppets.
I thought there was something wrong with the audio there for a second. Thanks so much. You gave me a little heart attack there. No,
Schmenson.
I love Muppets, but what if they take Muppets away? This is what I want to say. It has to appear somewhere else.
If they take away Muppets,
it has to go somewhere else. The IP
there will be. Oof.
The IP is too valuable. It needs to go somewhere else. Please don't take it totally away from us.
Yeah.
Because you're right, Lou. People will. You think they're losing their minds right now over Tom Sawyer?
There's a petition for Muppets already.
Is there?
Yeah.
You bring up a good point, though, Becky, with when it comes to Animation Courtyard and the problems. And remember, they said this is shovels and dirt. And in order for them to put shovels and dirt in the Animation Courtyard, you've got to move all those back business offices and all that infrastructure back there before you can touch Animation Courtyard. So I would not guess that it's going to go there.
And you have a new mermaid show coming, right?
Yeah, and it doesn't necessarily mean it has to go in Muppets. I mean, there are some things that may or may not be untouchable, like Indiana Jones, that has a good footprint you can take over there. But I don't know. I'm hoping that if we do lose Muppets, like you said, you put it somewhere else and you can maybe plus it up, refresh it, give it the love that it needs. But the theater itself, I would only go there if Star Tours got long, or and even the theater itself. I know they just renovated like some of the seat cushions and things like that.
Yeah,
but it did need some love as well.
That's what surprises me most about if they did decide there, just because they just put some money into that theater. Mm-hmm. It doesn't mean that it's out of the question, but Launch Bay is a huge area. And that there does need to be something that anchors that section of the park, and it's not going to be Little Mermaid to do that fully. So I'm interested to see. There's two areas that have space that could be more utilized. That we know. We just don't know which of them is going to be the choice for this.
And I think anything that you read online that does not necessarily come specifically from an official Disney source, you have to take with a grain of salt.
Right.
Like those folks who are like, I've seen the plans, I'm watching the bulldozer. Like you probably haven't, but it's great clickbait and it gets people talking about your site. I would really sort of, temper your emotions a little bit. I know it's easy to have a knee-jerk reaction until we have an announcement and then see. I think we all have said, Disney is very aware of our emotional investment, not just in the attractions or our memories or the characters, etc. And I think, they're smart enough to recognize that, and time will only tell. So I'm hesitant to speculate without having additional information.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to. Because 2 years from now, I don't want to sound even more like an idiot. Like, why'd you think it was going there, Mongello? Didn't you see the writing on the wall?
Yeah.
And there's an upside to it taking over Muppets in that if it solves that part of the problem or that piece of the puzzle, it does leave open the opportunity for something else to take over Animation Courtyard in the future. Whereas if you put Monstropolis there now, does anything ever get touched there again, or where does that happen next time? And I think it does leave the possibility open for the future of Animation. I'm gonna
tell you. I know what's coming in the other space. I do. I'm
more food.
No.
In which one?
I have three words
space?
for you. Animation Courtyard.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
That's
Mars needs moms. That's my vote. For one of the-
I want. Can I have a Deadpool land?
That.
I would much rather have a Deadpool land. I think that's next on the horizon.
Mars needs moms and the Good Dinosaur.
Oh yeah,
and the Wild.
Big fan appeal with those for sure.
Or a black hole. Wouldn't you want a black hole attraction?
Yes,
I know you would, and that's why I know it's never going to happen.
Don't you? I will accidentally disconnect you for good. All right, we have to move on because there's so much. Let's move over to. Did I miss anything in World? I don't think so.
Let me check.
Let's move over to Disneyland. Tiana's Bayou Adventure is going to open November 15th. I'll come back to something else. We saw a lot more about Avatar Land, which is going to be inspired by The Way of Water. Again, immersing us in this world of Pandora. Really different from what we have here in terms of the lush environments and the interactive element, and a new water-based attraction, which based solely on The concept art looks beautiful. We're also going to get the first ever Coco attraction, also a boat ride that's going to take us through the land of the dead. Construction is going to start there in 2026. God, there's so much I want to talk about.
I know.
I don't even know where to go first. I'm going to save that one for last. The Avengers Campus is going to expand. We don't just know that the attraction is now going to be called Avengers Infinity Defense, but it's going to double in size with the addition of an additional attraction called Stark Flight Lab, which is a high-tech flight experience controlled by robot arms, which made me think of the Kuka arm experience that they used to have.
Yep.
I'm doing the Kuka arm. Over in Innovations in Epcot. Robert Downey Jr. is going to reprise his role as Tony Stark for both of these attractions. And we saw concept art. We see just how big this land and the space is going to be, and a very unique ride system. The one thing that I want to, I'm going to plant my flag just for fun. This is all in fun, right? We're just having fun. The one thing that I noticed, and I really believe it was not announced, that we are going to see, because it didn't seem to make sense. In the Imagineering Pavilion, as they showed what the ride vehicle is going to look like and some of the concept art, there was a giant, like 9-foot tall cardboard cutout of King Thanos. I think there's going to be a King Thanos walk around that's going to use the same technology as the giant Hulk walk, the Professor Hulk sort of walk around that they had a year or two, maybe it was longer than 2 years ago, for at D23 and then sometime in Avengers Campus. Because why else would you have that sort of quote unquote life-size cardboard cutout, and other than to maybe give you a hint that you are going to be able to see this and interact with this character in to use the Muppet reference 3D.
Do you think that they will have that be something that's like ongoing? Because I thought the Hulk thing was so cool. I never got to see it in person, but it was such a limited time thing. Like, where is it?
I think it was a first generation test, of the technology. It's one thing to test it in the Imagineering labs. It's another thing to sort of bring it out onto, the stage. And
it would make sense because so much of Avengers appeal is those characters that roam in the land. It's just it really, there's not that much there in terms of attractions. Of course, obviously they're expanding that, but the real appeal to that is the way that the roaming characters breathe life to that place. It feels very, it feels fun to hang around there. Like I see people just sort of vibing in that area because you've got, characters coming and going all the time. There's sort of skits and like little, things that are happening in different areas. So if they did that for any area in a Disney park, I feel like that would be where you would do it.
And it's
one of the beauties of Avengers Campus. Like as shows debut on Disney Plus, the character walks out that same day.
Exactly.
So it's always relevant. It's always current.
Yeah. The Stark ride looks really cool. I love that it might be this sort of arm. What is it called again?
Like a Kuka
arm. Yeah. Because apparently that's Universal also is using that tech for an Epic attraction as well, I think, for the Harry Potter land. So that's, I think, just really cool just from a ride perspective to sort of see them utilize that technology. And what's the other one? Do we know much about the second attraction in there? I don't cover Disneyland, so
the Infinity Defense.
Yeah, Infinity Defense. Yeah. What is that?
It almost, the ride vehicle almost looks similar to, it almost looks like the ride vehicle, the Spider-Man ride vehicle.
I saw that. So that's the ride vehicle for that one that they were showing. Okay. Right. Yeah, it looked.
So it's a multi-person ride vehicle.
So these look like two legit attractions.
Right.
That are coming in there.
Absolutely. Infinity Defense for sure. And I love the fact that, the moment you think they can't expand any farther, they're going to double that in size, which is amazing to me. I know that there's space to work with. I know that there's that whole area back off to the left of Guardians that they haven't actually done too much with. There's kind of just sitting there. But the one thing we didn't hear a lot about was Disneyland Forward, which makes me think between Avatar and this and some of the other things that are being planned, they're not going to go for a third gate. They're just going to wrap DCA around to the back of Pixar? How is that going to work? Which that had my brain flipping upside down and rotating quite a lot, trying to figure out where they're going to put all these brand new things that they announced without going too much into the new footprint of Forward. So that's kind of interesting to me.
Yeah, we'll talk about some of the things that were not announced, and maybe some of the logic there. But I think the most interesting and dare I say, important announcement was one that probably has not just been, months or years, but probably decades in the making, was Walt Disney: A Magical Life, which is going to debut in 2025 at the Main Street Opera House with the first ever animatronic of Walt Disney himself. You want to talk about what is going to be and has to be a moving tribute to Walt Disney. We talked about this internally. I talked, again, if you listen to my conversation with Josh, like this was the one attraction that I felt like I needed to bring up because of you only get one chance to make this. It has to be perfect.
Yeah.
It has to be right. There's no, look how critical Disney fans are even of like the statue it's because this is not just about technology, right? It's not just about what he's going to say and how he's going to look, but the reverence and the respect for this person that really, and I love the fact that he's kicking off Disneyland's 70th anniversary.
Yeah, this was the one when they announced it, I had two feelings immediately. It was, oh my gosh, how cool. Oh, wait, huh? And it just had that initial kick of, wait, I don't know about this too. So I have a mixed emotion about it. However, there's a lot of responsibility here from what you said. Walt is Disney. Walt is the heart and soul of this. And they do only have one shot at it. And please don't disappoint us. And talking to people about the project and hearing about the care and concern and love behind it, which you could certainly hear in Josh's voice in your interview, Lou, you can tell that they're taking this incredibly seriously. And they do want to put so much love behind the whole experience of this, which made me feel a little bit more settled about it. And then I could cross that line from that little feeling to, okay, this is going to be amazing, where we actually get to see this man speak and hear his voice in such a way that will be very impactful and very emotional.
And that they're working with his family, right?
Correct.
That they brought the family into this.
Correct. Yeah. So hearing that also made me feel better. But I still kind of have a little mixed still left until I see it. But I am more excited than not about it.
Can we also talk about Meghan Trainor singing "Feed the Birds"?
Oh,
it's like, oh God.
Do we have to? Because I have tissues right here.
It was so good. It was so good in that moment with that conversation. They handled that whole announcement with just the right tone. And that musical performance just set the tone even more of just, there's a reverence there to even taking this project on. And I think it's going to be really emotional for people. I think it's also going to introduce Walt to an entire generation that doesn't even really know about this man behind this fun theme park that they're going to.
Mm-hmm.
That's a great point.
I think it's great that they're reminding us that Walt was an actual person, and it did come from real dreams and real people, and kind of putting that back into the parks, which, we lose sight of when we're in line for Guardians and things like that. But I think it's going to be a very welcome thing, and knowing that Disney's already paying so much attention to it, I don't think they do this wrong. I think they've got enough resources looking at it and getting the right opinions and things like that to where this is going to be great. I hope, maybe pull out one of the speeches he's had about, explaining what Disney is or something like that. And just make it something true that he said and not, generated content unless it's like touched up, and make it authentic to Walt. And I think it'll be just something brilliant. And I love that it'll also rotate with Abraham Lincoln as well. So you also don't lose that. But I think you'll probably go heavy on Walt when they start, so that everyone can get a chance to see it. So I'm excited for it.
But you're right. What he says is going to be as important as how he looks.
Right.
Is it just going to be actual recordings of Walt? I mean, look, what AI can do now is incredible. So, but who's going to be the person to put words in Walt's mouth, right? So, again, a lot of pressure, I think, on all sides. And
with great technology comes great responsibility.
Yeah. So speaking of places we're going to have to go to in order to see that in person, let's go across either or both ponds. I want to quickly touch on the overseas announcements. Disneyland Paris, we know Disney Adventure World, that plane is very much in flight. They are getting a new nighttime spectacular in January 2025 and another one in 2026 on its new lake using every technology that's available, like pyro, we got it. Flames, we got it. Drones, we got it. Like Disneyland Paris does nighttime spectacular very,
no one else,
very well. Yeah,
their drones are incredible. Incredible.
Their drones are amazing.
Pyro off a drone.
Calm down over there. Again, think about the IP that's being used for some of these new locations. There's going to be the Pride Lands, inspired by the Lion King, with dining, shopping, character meets, a ride through the caverns beneath Pride Rock following Simba's journey from cub to king, dining with a lot of, again, it's this idea of not just rich storytelling, but truly, like Walt wanted with his original views of Fantasyland, immersive environment, right? He wanted you to be able to walk through and ride through the attractions of the films you had seen on screen. We are finally going to be able to do that in a fully fleshed out Pride Land inspired by Lion King.
Yeah, that's going to be
and it looks
incredible.
like a flume type attraction.
Yeah. And this is all in that new Disneyland Paris area, right?
Adventure
World. Yeah. That was the studios, right? And this is the new name for it.
It's this, right. So it's now Adventure World, and then they sort of blew out the back and expanded it with that massive water feature that they're going to be able to build around. Because around there is also going to be World of Frozen, which is going to open in 2026, bringing Arendelle to life there as well. Which we know that, and they know obviously that park needed. So for a while, it is going to be a quote unquote, there's going to be a lot of dirt that's being moved there, but it is going to pay massive dividends once it's done.
Yeah, that's exciting.
Tokyo Disneyland, is getting a new nighttime spectacular called Reach for the Stars. Again, Tokyo does nighttime performances and parades and live experiences very, very, very well. So looking at the concept art for this too, I love the fact that we see a lot of classic characters, right? There's Dumbo, there's Wall-E, there's Up, Aladdin and Jasmine, Tinkerbell, Big Hero 6, Marvel characters. And I love the fact that there is so much leaning into Hercules, like across the company and across the parks and cruise line. Like my family, we love Hercules a lot, and I love the character. I adore the music from it. So I love seeing Hercules continue. Again, think about the timing of when these films have come out and how much attention that they're getting.
Definitely.
Mm-hmm.
That is a logical connection to Disney Cruise Line, where the Destiny is getting Disney Hercules.
I'm never going to be on the. I'm not going to be at home. We're going to live in Paris
already.
Paris and Tokyo and Shanghai and Hong Kong, and now we have 4 ships we have to worry about too.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. Right. So you've got the Tale of Moana on the Treasure, Hercules on the Destiny. Raise your hand if you saw the announcement of 4 ships coming.
Never. 4 ships in the next. So basically, they said from 27 to 31.
To 31.
So
and they usually do them in 2.
And we already have the ships that we're getting. So it's just a ship every year is essentially what we're getting, right?
Pretty close. There's going to be 1 year that's off. So I can imagine they'll do ship 1 and 2 together and then ship 3 and 4. So No, I didn't see this coming. I thought that they were going to talk about new destinations because they already gave us all these new ships. So we have the Adventure, we have the Japan ship, we have the Destiny. I thought it was going to be maybe, one ship coming, but nothing like this. So I just sat there in stunned silence when they said that. And of course, they brought the band out that sang the song, and the name of the band had to do with 4. I wasn't putting it together. As a matter of fact, I even texted, I think Lou and Corey, I texted you and said, where are they going with this? Because this is making no sense to me. And then sure enough, when he said the 4 ships, it's like, what?
Yeah. That
crazy
was crazy.
talk. So obviously the next thing that we do have to think about is all the ships that they've announced so far, for the exception of the Adventure, are Wish class. So even the one that's going into Japan, it's Titan class, but everyone's calling it Wish class because it's the Wish. So those are all the same. So I'm hoping that
This
ship
will be
1
new.
and 2 and 3 and 4 will be different.
Me
That'll be
too.
a whole different class of ship.
Don't you think they will? I mean, we've
I
got
think
so
so.
many of
Yeah.
the Triton class. I feel like that we could really get.
And I think that they've also I think that they've heard feedback.
Yeah. I
hope
You know,
so.
I think that they
Please
listen
hear
to
us.
feedback. Yeah. So,
Well, you're going that far in the future. There's you have to be ready to
evolve,
to
right?
get some
The
new
ships
ones.
have to evolve.
Yeah.
So then what makes it exciting at that point is where do we get to go?
Where do we get to go, and
Where
what
do we
will
get to
those ships
go?
look like, and what would they change and tweak, and what? Because with the Wish, it was just everything was so new, and it was just learning a whole new layout, design, the meals and dinners changed. It's going to be so exciting to see.
Yeah.
Every single year, we're going to have something going on.
And knowing that we're going to get information about ship 1 before we even get, and that's going to probably sail before the Japan ship does, which is kind of interesting too.
Yeah.
In looking at the timeline. So this is exciting. And I love seeing this because it finally puts Disney up into the competitors with the number of ships they have. So demand will probably even out a little bit when you have that much space to fill.
True.
Which hopefully that will help us to maybe see some calming in their prices, but who knows? Because obviously, who knows what the future is going to hold. But this is exciting to see that they are putting so much investment in Disney Cruise Line, which means that they plan on being around forever and growing this experience.
Well, I think more importantly, it means that the West Coast is probably going to get, get a ship. You get a ship.
Yeah.
Europe is going to get a ship. Do they bring another ship back up to the Northeast? Like that cruise we did out of New York to Puerto Rico.
That was pretty
so much
cool.
fun.
Well, you can't take a ship to Europe year round. The weather is not really loving a ship really early in the season or late in the season. You can't do Mediterranean. You can't do Northern because they tend to be very, very, very rough seas. If they try, awesome. Give us some great stabilization in that new
thrill
in that
ride. It's
ship.
a thrill ride.
Exactly.
It's a thrill ride to see.
But you could though send a couple of ships to Europe during the European season rather than just one. You could send a couple of ships to Australia instead of just one. You could have more ships on the West Coast. So instead of moving the Wonder, because right now it is technically home ported in San Diego, so it's going to do Mexico and then go up to Alaska. Maybe you're going to have 2 ships. One is doing Alaska, and the other ship can continue to do Mexico. So it does open up a lot more opportunities for shorter destinations and cruise itineraries, and also pair in a 7-night too, so that there's a lot of options. Exciting.
It's so exciting.
So many buffets. I can't wait.
It's so exciting. Honestly, Disney Cruise Line to me right now is just killing it. It's such a fun time to be a fan of theirs and be involved in all these projects, like these shows. I just love them. I'm such a fan.
It's a great time to be a Disney fan.
I know.
All together right now.
You know what else? It's also a great time to be?
What?
A Spider-Man fan. Because you don't just get one, but you get 2 attractions. I mean, you have to go overseas for them. Hong Kong is getting a Spider-Man attraction, and I love the fact that we see Doc Ock in the background. The Avengers logo is there. And then Shanghai is also getting a Spider-Man thrill coaster, which, again, just based on the concept art, looks great. I love that they're leaning so heavily into one of my favorite, and I'm not alone, really sort of the most popular.
You know what that means, though, don't you?
Yes,
we're going to have to.
I need to.
We're going to renew our
visa.
Our China visas are only lasting for 4 more years, and it's going to take a while. So we're going to have to renew them.
So what we should do? Wait, I think if we really want to sort of discuss this in a relatively intellectual format, I think we need to go to Hong Kong and Shanghai now. See what it looks like. Get a vibe of what it looks like now,
so we can
and then
compare
speculate us to where they're going to go. Right.
Then we could do a prediction show from there, and then compare it to when we get back there.
Serena's waving her hair wildly. I want to be on that show. I want to come to this. I want to come to the overseas parks too. Yeah. I mean, I love. I think there's, and I think this is what we were talking about earlier. Like, there's reasons. Yeah. And I think there's more reasons to go, and I think making these overseas parks even more attractive by leaning into a lot of different IP and franchises that are going to attract not just their domestic guests, but us international guests as well.
Yes, they're super smart to do that.
I want to sort of try and put a gigantic bow on all of these Christmas presents, and I'm sure we missed. I'm sure there's something that we missed because there were so many attractions. I think there's 2 things I want to touch on. The first is, and I don't want to belabor this point because there's reason to it. A lot of people are like, well, what was not announced? What are all the things that were not announced? What about? You didn't talk about Imagination. Where's all the Disneyland forward announcements? New resorts, Epcot Country, Tomorrowland on both coasts, all things that we discussed in our prediction show, which were wildly. I don't necessarily think that we're wrong. I think it's time, right? I think if you start to, and as it's already happening now, you start to announce too much, you lose the impact. Yeah. Right? We're losing the impact to a certain degree, and I'll use Zootopia as an example because there's so many, it's like Christmas. If you give your kid too many it's true. You give your kid too many Christmas presents, they forget about the little one. You're like, oh, I thought you really were going to. Yeah. Because there's all these other ones that are so distracting. Right. Yeah. I think these announcements are coming and will continue to come over time, whether it's a Destination D, whether it is, who knows? This is the first D23 in Brazil. Are they testing the waters there? Is this a place to make an announcement that, can happen not just in that room, but they share with us online? I'm not so sure. But who knows? Who knows what, because they know the timing that we don't. Look, they've got $60 billion. They have $60 billion to spend. So that's a lot of money to go around on Christmas presents.
And clearly for the next D23, hopefully in 2 years, they're going to need new announcements to get us excited about too, right? So they have to do better than they did this year and blow themselves out of the water. And maybe those are the things that they're holding on to.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that leads me to what I want to hear from you. Serena and Corey and Becky and you, our friend who's hopefully still here on this ride with us.
Are you still there?
3-hour podcast.
I want to know what your biggest takeaways were from D23. And you can sort of, we don't need to rehash everything, but what are your 1 or 2 biggest takeaways, either from the event itself, the show floor, the announcements, the studios, the parks, whatever it might be, Serena, Becky, and Corey?
I think my biggest takeaway was just how Disney is really listening to the fans and they feel really responsive and they're really reading the room. And we're coming from a time when that didn't feel very much like it'd been there for the last 3-4 years. There had been a little bit of womp kind of feeling with some of the announcements and things that were going on. So as a fan of the theme parks especially, but just as a Disney fan in general, I just feel very excited about the future. They're clearly investing, but they're also investing with a mind to what the majority of people are looking for, what is going to excite people, what is going to make people book that trip. I heard a lot of things announced that would make me book a trip.
Right.
And at the end of the day, that's what I want. I want that for the parks, but I also want that as a fan, just to get really excited about something coming that I'm really anxious to see. And I also feel like the tone of the Imagineers, getting to kind of hang out in that Imagineering pavilion for a while, they seem really excited about what they're doing. And you want that. You want them to feel like they're getting challenged, and they're the ones that have all this creativity and all of these great ideas. Like, let's get them really excited and give them the resources to just take off and run, because we know when they're given that they can do amazing things.
You just said everything that I was going to say.
Oh, no.
But to add to it, though, I mean, Disney's got its hand in a lot of pots, because we have movies, we have streaming, we have parks and resorts. There's a lot of things going on and a lot of plates spinning for the company. And it has to perform on a lot of different levels. So one of the takeaways from me is that they are investing in a place in the parks and resorts to a level. They gave us a number, but you never know really what that number is or what it means until you start seeing 50 things announced, and still knowing there's a whole bunch of things that they haven't even touched on. But the greatest piece that you mentioned, Serena, was that they do seem to be listening. They responded to what we reacted to 2 years ago. They came out with guns blazing saying, don't worry, this is not blue sky. They had heard that message loud and clear. And again, while they're saying things after they listened that some of us don't want to hear, or that it has implications that we really don't want to wrap our brains around, I think that they are truly thinking it through and trying to make decisions based on what's going to be best for, yes, the company and its bottom line, but inevitably what's going to be best for the fans, because they don't want to sink their own ship, right? And again, walking away with all of this excitement, all of these new things, knowing that there's still a bunch of places that they can improve upon. I want to live until I'm like 120 so I can see all this stuff. but the ships, everything. I just love the fact that I feel more engaged in the company than I have the past few years because of what I witnessed the past few days. It's a good time to be a Disney fan.
Yeah, so they both stole everything I was going to say. So no, I think mine can be put pretty simple in that. I think there were some. Look, it's easy to be divisive on social media and online, and hearing all the negative is prevalent, right? And so I think for me, what my biggest takeaway from Expo is that I've this renewed sense of faith and trust. I guess I should also say pixie dust. But I have faith that they are paying attention. They remember that they're fans as well. They remember their fans first, and that they are excited about the future of what they're doing. And that's something maybe I lost sight of in the last couple of years or however long. And then from an Expo point of view in general, I just had so much more fun than I remember. You know, it's usually so chaotic, especially getting out of the parks panels. And then, like you said, 15,000 of your best friends are now next to you, and the cell phone signal and all that stuff. But I just had so much fun just being able to experience everything under the umbrella. And it was refreshing to get back to that.
So, the theme of this year's Disney experiences, parks and resorts, was Horizons. And it got me to thinking about some of the original music from Horizons, like We've Just Begun to Dream. And that was sort of my takeaway from this, right? We're talking about this $60 billion, 50 announcements globally, all of the expansion the new expansion and the new attractions that are happening. It makes me think that this is just sort of the tip of the iceberg and that there is much more to come. My feeling looking back was the same feeling I had when I was on the show floor, and people sort of asked me to sort of describe. It's wonderfully overwhelming. And I love that. I love that we feel overwhelmed. I love that our brains were mush on Saturday night, and to a certain degree, they still are now as we're processing and looking back and trying to dissect all of this. Look at for all the people that are complaining about where this is going to go and what we're going to lose, look at everything that we got. Mm-hmm. I never would have imagined we, especially after 2022, got as much as we did. I thought there would be sort of that one, keystone announcement that was going to be the thing we were going to hang our hats on, not expecting as much as we did. I think all of you are right. I think there was a shift in the best possible way in terms of tone, in terms of trust, in terms of being acknowledged. Like, I think the things that we talked about on the prediction show, like for some people, they needed to fall back in love again. I think this might hopefully have done that for at least a significant portion of them. It got people excited, or excited again if maybe that had waned a little bit. I think that expression of trust from Disney to us, the way it was expressed in 2022 versus how it was expressed now, in terms of we are listening, we are responding, we do understand, and we want to give you what you want. I think that whether you agree with or loved every single one of the announcements, I think the announcements that we got are generational, right? We're not looking at things that are just 2, 5, 10 years. These are meant to be places and spaces and experiences that, like I said, are not just for us, but for our kids and for our kids' kids. Like, I think history is going to look back on this and be like, wow, 2024, that was a really big year for the Disney. You don't, and that's what I was saying, like, you don't need a fifth gate in order to have things that are jaw-dropping moments. And I, as a fan first, I was grateful for what we got and how we got them. I use the Christmas, analogy because that's how I feel. I feel like the kid at Christmas whose parents just kept on giving them like gift after gift after gift. And we sit on the floor and we have like, I don't know what to play with first. Like, I don't know where I want to go first, and it is a gift, because they get it. There is a lot of pressure and there is a lot of very vocal and very public criticism that happens. And I can't imagine what those meetings and what those conversations and what the pressure of those decisions is like. I, as a fan first, left wonderfully overwhelmed and wonderfully satisfied and wonderfully surprised by everything that I saw. Going back to just the event itself, I agree with you. I think this was, I know we say it every year, but I think from a practical, logistical, emotional sense, this was the best D23 yet. I am grateful that from Michael Vargo to Bob Iger and everyone down, the fact that they were listening, that they adapt, and that they understand the people who are going to be able to be in the room, and even sort of not being in the room the way we are reacting to some of these things. My last question for you is personally, right? And forgive me for sort of referencing this, but like when I did have that privilege of talking to Josh, like I wanted to know from him, like, not just about the individual announcement. I wanted to know from his personal feelings, right? How he felt. I want to know from you, as well as you who might be listening, what your favorite moment, your favorite memory from this year's D23 was. Don't shake your head, Becky. You know this was coming. I mean,
you're nuts. Have you been here for the last 3 hours? Because it's... Hello.
She said I'm nuts. I'm not self-aware. Well, Becky, I'll do you a service. Wow. Corey first, then Serena, and then Becky can Google. Becky's going to AI going, what was my favorite
what was my favorite thing?
I think what sticks out for me in terms of the memory book would be the first 15 minutes at the Hilton after the Parks panel, where I said, give me one word. And for the longest time, none of us said anything. And so that was, it was an interesting moment that I'll definitely remember that.
I think for me, this is just super personal, but like to feel how grateful I feel to have been there as a fan, like it felt like a very historic, important event for a Disney fan to be at. So I felt really excited that I was there, present, and not just watching from home, because I've been on that side for a lot of Disney events in years past. Before I had a Disney-based business, I was on the side of being like, oh man, what would it have been like to have been there, And to have now to be there, but also to be part of it as media to be like invited by Disney to be there. That just adds a whole other cherry on top. But also just to be able to share that with the fans and be in that room and that energy, to me, I just take that away as such a like, it re-energized me from a personal standpoint, from a business standpoint. It's like very special to me. That's the thing I'm going to take away from it.
So I can relate to both what Corey said and what Serena said. So what they both said. Plus, I'm going to add in, because the energy in that room was just crazy. It was off the charts, which feeling that energy in person, a live stream would have never given you that feeling that we got. But I'm going to go a different direction. And Lou, I think this is for both you and I. We nailed the balloon for the second time in a row. Because you have no idea how much we go through to figure out what we're going to do with that balloon. And it comes down usually to the 11th hour when we finally decide what we're going to do. But the fact that we did decide to go with a Disney Cruise Line balloon when there was 4 ships announced and we had no idea that was coming, just how the booth operates and how we get to interact with people. It's great to be a Disney fan on the floor. It's great to witness all of this. It's great to be part of that energy. But I love that we have a space where others from the WDW Radio community can come and say hello and talk to us individually. I met a lot of the listeners. I got to hug a lot of the listeners. I got to hear them say thank you. I got to hear them tell their stories to Lou about how he's made a difference in their lives. And to have that opportunity means a lot to me. So D23 does a lot for me personally, and it feeds my soul. Plus, I got to make up with Disney a little bit. What?
What'd you say?
It's that thing from 2 years ago where we were all like, we got nothing that you told us about, and we sat in the room.
Were you guys like on a break or something?
Yeah, we broke up. We broke up for a little bit. Other than that, seriously, just the connection with people, connection with other fans, connection with each other, connection with the company, connection with the IP, and connection with the people from the community. That's my takeaway.
I'm going to continue to ride my gift metaphor because, and Serena, not to sort of, take away from anything you said, but like, I'm very aware on a daily basis. Like, I'm not here if it wasn't for you person sitting next to me who's listening. I'm not. I'm a miserable lawyer in New Jersey, sitting in traffic somewhere. I'm eating a really good pork roll, egg, and cheese, but that's beside the point. I'm not here if it wasn't for you. And when I have the privilege and opportunity to be at a place like Expo as a fan to cover it on the show floor, and some of the remarkable opportunities that were gifted to me, that doesn't happen without you. So everything felt like a gift to me. Like being there there was times I like sit in the booth and I sort of step back and out of it, like, look where you are. Like, look at the people you're surrounded by. And Becky, look at the people you're surrounded by. Like, look at the place that you get to be. And it is, and it's a gift. And the announcements were a gift, and the conversations were a gift. And the hugs are, and by the way, if you did listen to it, I did actually I told Josh I wanted to hug him. I got my hug from Josh after.
Nice.
So because I wanted to thank him.
Yeah.
And he's kind of dreamy too. Come on.
No, don't make it weird. But because it goes back to the very first thing that we said. It's about how we feel. Right. And that was just the way I sort of needed to sort of express my gratitude, like my gratitude for Josh, my gratitude to the company, my gratitude to the three of you for being here, for everybody who helped out to the booth, who came by the booth, who listens and allows me to do that. I am incredibly grateful for everything that we were able to experience there, and for the ability to be here, and for the fact that these hours later, you're hopefully still awake and or listening. So it is a sense of absolute undeniable gratitude. So And that gratitude also continues to extend to the three of you for being so generous with your time and your help and the memories that we shared at D23. I look forward to doing it again in a couple of years or maybe next year at Destination D23. All right, the very last question I have for each of you, go around the horn. Serena, Corey, and Becky Mankin, tell people where you are, where they can find you, what you do, and how they can reach out to you.
Living by Disney is my home base, livingbydisney.com, and on all the socials. And I share strategies and tips on how to visit Disney World and Orlando, make it a little more magical.
Corey Bassett?
And I actually have something to plug this time. You can find me at Fantasy Turf War on all the socials and the website. It's a new thing we're doing, 64-team fantasy football, different people together. Yeah, it's a lot of fun. So join us there.
And Ms. Mankin?
MEI-travel.com for all of your travel needs, mousefantravel.com for Disney and Disney destinations. And I'm on all the socials at Becky Mankin.
I will link to all of those, or at least some of those, in the show notes over at WDW Radio.com. Finally, I want to hear from you, our friend who has been sitting here with us, about your favorite moment or memory or announcement from this year's D23, the Ultimate Disney Fan Event. There's a lot of different ways you can let me know. Come be part of the community and conversation over in the Clubhouse at WDWRadio.com/Clubhouse. That is our fun, friendly, family-friendly group over on Facebook. You can also call the voicemail and share your thoughts. I will play them on the air at 407-900-9391. That's 407-900-WDW1. Or you can also connect with me, obviously, on social. I am at Lou Mangello. And, I have a lot more to share. I was sharing things feverishly. I know, Serena, you were too. We were sharing feverishly as it was going on, and I have a lot more content that I'm still continuing to drip out over the next few days and weeks. Guys, thank you again so very much. I appreciate you. The attraction you want to ride most, go.
Casita.
Oh my gosh. Avengers Infinity Defense, Casita, all of them.
Really?
All of them. All 4 ships. Every single thing that they announced. Let's just go with that. You know what, Lou? The one thing you haven't really talked a lot about
really bad
is
at this.
all the things that you want to talk about. Food. You haven't even really thought about all the food that's coming with all these.
Oh, no. I have a whole separate show just on food. That's coming.
Now I'm excited for that Monsters, Inc. That's all I'm thinking about.
The food or the ice cream?
All of it.
I do want to stand face to face with King Badger's scary, but also
You're going to need a ladder.
Harryhausen sushi. Harryhausen sushi.
You're going to totally need a ladder,
That's
Corey.
It's time for our Walt Disney World Trivia Question of the Week, where I invite you to test your knowledge of Walt Disney World's history or see how well you pay attention to the details which you see, hear, taste, or remember. If you think you know the answer, you can enter for a chance to win a Disney Prize package. And this week's trivia contest is once again brought to you by you. Because as part of the WDW Radio Nation, you help bring every episode of the show to life, and for as little as $1 per month, not only do you help support the show, but you also unlock exclusive rewards like scavenger hunts, group video calls, private community access, and surprise care packages. Plus, your contribution helps our Dream Team project, which sends children to Walt Disney World through Make-A-Wish. And thanks to your generosity, we've raised more than $550,000 so far. And I am incredibly grateful to and for you and the love, support, friendship, and help you give to the show, and I love being able to give back to you each and every month. I want to quickly thank some of the new and longtime members of the Nation family, including Emma Harmon, Jason Nacera, Kevin Cooper, Rick Bedoya, Christopher Anderson, Tracy Funk, and Michelle Hull. And to find out how you can be part of the Nation family, you can visit www.radio.com/support. Now, before we get to this week's question, let's go back, review last week's, and select our winner. So on the last show, we were talking about how that one of my favorite parts of D23, the Ultimate Disney Fan Event, is the Legends Ceremony. And your question was about a relatively recent Disney legend, because I asked you, which 2009 Disney legend starred as Maude Finley on the TV show Maude before joining the Golden Girls? Thanks to so many of you entered, got this one correct. I think our huge Golden Girl fans maybe didn't even know who or what Maude is, but knew, of course, that the answer was Disney legend Bea Arthur. And her Disney career was highlighted by her iconic role as Dorothy on the Touchstone TV series The Golden Girls, which aired on NBC from 1985 through 1992. And remember, the show was produced by Touchstone Television, which is a division of the Walt Disney Company that makes it a Disney-associated show. Anyway, I took all the correct entries, randomly selected one, and last week you were playing for a WDW Radio keychain, stickers, pin, mystery item, and I told you I'd bring something back for you from D23. Well, actually, I brought you a few things back from D23, and last week's winner, randomly selected, is Robert Halcomb. So Robert, congratulations. I will get your prize package out to you right away, and if you played last week and didn't win, that's okay, because here's your next chance to enter in this week's Walt Disney World Trivia Challenge. So we're talking about changes coming to the Disney parks, specifically Walt Disney World, and much of the conversation recently about some of the changes has been specifically about Tom Sawyer Island, so that's where we're going to go this week for the trivia question. And I want you to tell me what unique item used to be hidden on Tom Sawyer Island, which, when found and turned in by a guest to a cast member, could be exchanged for a prize. What unique item used to be hidden on Tom Sawyer Island, and if you found it, you can turn into a cast member for a prize. You have until Sunday, August 25th at 11:59 p.m. Eastern to go to WDWRadio.com, click on this week's podcast, use the form there. Again, this week you're going to play for the keychain, the stickers, the pin, mystery items, and I brought back a bunch of stuff from D23. I'll throw a few D23 goodies in the mystery item package as well. So good luck and have fun. That's going to do it for this week's show. Just wanted to quickly say thank you again for taking the time to tune in this and every week. Again, this show in its entirety, and specifically this episode, does not happen without you listening and being so supportive and being part of the community and conversation. I would not be able to go to D23 and cover D23 and share D23 with you the way I was able to on this week's show. So I just wanted to quickly say thank you once again. And speaking of events, as much as I love connecting with you and talking with you online, I still believe that nothing beats a handshake and a hug. So check out our events page at WDWRadio.com/events or over on our Facebook page at Facebook.com/WDWRadio. We have cruises coming up, Adventures by Disney, river cruises, and our next beat of the month in Walt Disney World coming soon. And I have something very special that I'm planning for October, so definitely stay tuned. That's why subscribing to the newsletter at WDWRadio.com/subscribe is so very important. It's free, it's weekly, it keeps you updated, and is the best way to make sure you don't miss a thing. So that's it for us this week, and me in my hotel room here in Washington, D.C. Again, I apologize for the hotel room audio, especially at this part of the show. But I hope that you have a great day today, and even better tomorrow. And always remember to not just choose the good, but be the good. Have a ripple effect of positivity by choosing the good and inspiring others. I hope that this is your best week ever. So until next time, thanks again. I love you. See ya.
Hey Lou, it's Ashley Scarpa calling in from Florida. I just listened to your episode with Josh Tomorrow covering D23. And first of all, I thought it was amazing. But second of all, I listened to it a couple of hours ago, and I just keep feeling excited for you from so many different perspectives. But as a fan of yours for a long time, to just see the growth and the success that you have had as being such an accomplished podcaster and Disney fan first, I just think it's amazing. So I just wanted to say, I know, who am I to say I'm proud of you, but I'm so proud of you, and I hope you're so proud of you. I hope you are so proud of you, because this is amazing, and I just think it's awesome that if Josh Tomorrow is going to give an interview, he gave it to you, Lou Mangello. So I hope you're doing something fun to celebrate and just kind of soaking in the bliss, because you are one lucky man, but you have worked so hard for it, and I just think it's awesome, and I wanted to tell you that. So thanks again for all you do. Thanks again for your coverage, and thanks for bringing us all together, because this is truly one of the best communities that there is, and we have you to thank for that. Cheers. Hope to see you soon, Lou. Thanks. Bye.
Hi, Lou. My name's Mackenzie, calling from Seattle. This is my very first time calling in after almost 10 years of listening, and I just really wanted to thank you for everything that you do, and bringing a little bit of the Disney magic into my life. I've really missed the parks this week. It's been several years since I've been able to go ever since COVID, and I've just been missing it, and being able to hear you talk and discuss how much you love the parks and love Disney has made me feel so happy and welcome. And so I just want to take a moment to thank you. And hope you and your family are doing well. Thank you.